to be under your skin. Oh. Words set the waves in motion, baby. Now it's sinking in. Baby, you did me in. And now I'm falling back again.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alan Peltier. I'm the president of HRE, and I want to thank all of you for coming out this morning. I'm going to give you guys a little rundown on how this is going to work, and some of you have probably done this before with us, but we haven't done a tech session in almost a year, so it may be new for a lot of you as well. And so the way it's going to work is, first I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on HRE, because I get to do that because we're at HRE. And then after you're bored, I'll take you on a quick tour. And it'll be, I apologize beforehand, it's going to be a little tough because this is a big group. And some of the narrow ways and stuff are a little tight. So if you have trouble hearing me or something, there are speakers. I'll have a microphone and there are speakers. And just raise your hand. And then on that, if you guys have questions at any time, please ask questions, no problem. But we'll try to do that tour quickly. I'll try to do that faster than I normally do because we're going to do the tech sessions. And so the way the tech sessions are going to work is there's 4 companies here, and I will introduce you to the appropriate people in a second. It's HRE, Akrapovic Exhaust, Michelin Tires, and Brembo Brakes. And so there's 4 groups based on color that you guys should have as your name tag, right? Is that right? And so if you look at the color of your name tag, that defines which group you're in. So if you're in the yellow group, the blue group, red group, the green group. And so the yellow group is HRE, and that will start here. So after the tour, we'll come back to this room, and there'll be chairs here and everything for everybody to sit down. The blue group is Michelin. Michelin is down the hall and in the conference room, and that's the way we'll rotate. We're going to actually rotate clockwise. So after the presentation, each group will move to the next station, and we'll do 4 presentations. Okay, and then after that, Brembo is outside here in the shop, and then Akrapovic is farther back toward the ramp in the shop. So, and we'll tell you guys when to move, and it'll be obviously clear. So, but stick with your group. And then we'll do a break in between 2 of the presentations. So we'll do 2, and then we'll break for a little bit, and then we'll do 2 more. And then after that, we'll have a nice lunch. And then you guys can, at that point, also follow up with more questions and meet more of the teams and so on. So I want to introduce you to Johnny and Danny and Chris and Nick. So Nick Wright is actually with HRE, but he will be doing the Akrapovic presentation. We're the distributor in the United States for Akrapovic Exhaust. Raise your hand, Nick. Johnny Valencia is with Michelin. Danny Jacobs and Chris Villasenor are with Race Technologies, which is a commercial partner of Brembo Brakes. And again, I'm Alan Peltier. I'll do the presentation for HRE Wheels. So I think I've covered.
Cheers. Thanks for doing this.
Well, no, thank you for. We haven't bored you to death, so don't thank us yet. I'm going to start really quickly with just some background on HRE. I want all of you, not just with HRE, but all the other companies that are here, the intention for doing this is, you guys know the brands, you've heard of these brands, and you even understand in a lot of cases what we do. I think one of the reasons we try to have a more intimate group like this is to get you to understand why we do things. Why do we do things the way we do? Why do we make our wheels this way? Or why do why does HRE even exist? I mean, why would you want to buy HRE, right? For instance, or Michelin or Race Technologies or Brembo brakes, right? So with a group like this, we have the opportunity to make it more intimate and answer your questions. And also, it's not just you reading our marketing or advertisements or whatever. It's you get to really interface with us and understand. So with that, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on HRE. HRE has been around since the late 70s. It started out as a wheel importer and then started manufacturing its own wheels, I think, in the 80s. Our current owners bought the company in 93, and it changed in the 90s, and we started manufacturing forged wheels, three-piece. And I'm going to go over the difference between three-piece and one-piece and two-piece and all that in the tech session. And that was really our heritage for a long time, and now we make one-piece wheels and so on and so forth. I joined the company in 1999. I've been here almost 18 years. I came from Northrop Grumman. I did about 8 years there through college and after grad school. I wanted to work at a small company. Northrop Grumman is awesome. I'm a car guy. And I wanted to be able to shape the culture of a company and build a business. And so HRE was a perfect fit for me. After 10 years, I got promoted to president. So now I really get to define the culture. And I think and I'm talking about that because I'm going to talk a lot about this engineering stuff, but I want you guys to understand why we have the motivation that we have. I mean, why do we all get up and come to work here at HRE? I mean, I always say we're trying to create something special. And that's a little nebulous. It's like, what does that mean? And I'm not even fully sure, but I can tell you, I want HRE to be a place where not just me, but our entire team comes to work and they're inspired. They're challenged. They love what they do because we're trying to build something that's special. And we're not trying to cure cancer. We're not doing anything that's great for the world, unfortunately. We're making wheels. But in our microcosm, we want to do that as best as possible. And so I want everybody that walks through that door to be inspired every day. And so if we're not striving to be special and trying to do it as best we can every day, we're not going to have a team that's inspired. And so with that, we have a culture that is very tight. We're very protective of it. A lot of people want to work here. It is fun. And I'll tell you, the draw for everybody that wants to work here is the cars, right? I mean, I get to come to work in this 918 out back, and there's a 911R out back and one out front, right? I mean, that doesn't happen every day. But I'll tell you, after you've been here a while, the cars are almost secondary. It's just an added bonus. It's actually HRE. It's the team, it's the culture. You get to come and you get to work with a bunch of wonderful people and you get to do something that you really, really love. And that's what I wanted to create. I want to create something where the people here love us, love what they do, and our customers and our fans appreciate that and love us as well. And so in order to do that, everybody has to be on the same page. And so we have a culture that's based on trust. And some of you have probably heard me say this before. That means two things. We have to trust that you have integrity, that you have the right intentions. That one's easy. If you don't have that, if you're a liar or whatever, you don't get to stay on the team. It's really simple. You're going to stick out. It's going to be because everybody's really nice and honest and sincere. And so that one's easy. But we also have to trust that you have the ability to get the job done. And that one's hard. We're a small business. And so unlike when I worked at Northrop Grumman, you could put non-performers in the corner until layoffs came. If we put non-performers in the corner, that's going to destroy the morale of our performers. And so unfortunately, sometimes non-performers still love their job. They're passionate. They have the integrity. They love HRE. And sometimes we still have to let them go. And that's hard because it is personal, right? It's business for us, but it's very personal for them. And so we don't like to do that. We like to find another home within HRE. If you bring that passion and that integrity, we want to find a home where you can succeed. And we've done that. We've moved a lot of people around, and they've struggled in one area and blossomed in others. But the reality is those two things are very, very fundamental, that trust in intentions and trust in ability. And I'll tell you, that's my most important job. I came here as lead engineer and design wheels, and I still get to design. They let me design wheels every once in a while. My most important job is maintaining that culture. And I'll tell you, when HRE struggles, it's because I'm not doing a good job at that. I'm letting people stay on the team that shouldn't be here. And so I just want to give you that sense for why we do what we do. Why do we push so hard? And I'm going to explain how we do everything, and I'll get into the why of the engineering and the technology and all that stuff later. But I want you to understand what HRE actually stands for, and what we actually think of ourselves, and why we do what we do. And so we're not here just to make wheels and make money for our owners. I mean, they probably wish we were doing that more, but you know, for us, this is our life. We spend almost more time here than we do with our families, and this is my second family. So I want it to be someplace I love, and I want it to be someplace that everybody that walks through that door that works for us, they love it too. Okay? So with that, I'm going to give you guys a quick tour of the manufacturing. Okay? We make all of our forged product here. Our flow form product is not made here. We design it here, but it's made in Japan. But I can show you all of how we do the forged production, and it's pretty cool. And we forget sometimes because we're here every day. So, but it's pretty neat. So with that, if you guys want to follow me out, and is that all right? Is that okay?
I just wanted to make sure you
Yeah. Didn't go over?
did, yeah. 'Cause
No,
this
no.
part takes,
Yeah. I got to stay away from the speakers so we don't have any feedback, but if you guys want to come on out and kind of spread out, if you notice there's this big machine in here. Those of you who have been here before, normally I can get to the mills that are behind this, and I can show you a lot of how the wheels are manufactured. I'm going to talk about this in a second, but let me try and explain to you how this works. We start with what we see behind you here on a one-piece wheel. This is a forged blank, and I'll go into in the tech session how that's made. But from there, it's going to go into these lathes here, and feel free to. You guys can walk over and take a peek. We're going to cut half. We're going to cut the other half, right? And this sort of defines the profile and the shape, and you're going to have a very nice, smooth. It has to be obviously. It has to run true. And then from there, it's going to go into our mills. And our mills is where the style gets defined. And so to cut all of this out, we have to come in and put it in the milling machines. And we used to put them in individually. There's 4 machines here. 3 of them are now hooked up to what's our brand new cell system. This actually just went live, this week, really. And took 4 months to install. It was supposed to take a month. So if any of you have HRE wheels on order, I apologize for the lead times because they've been very long. But this machine is awesome. What it does is we're able to load the wheels into a fixture. This rail-guided vehicle, which is basically a robot, comes down and picks the wheels up and stores the wheels until they're needed, until the mills are done. And then as soon as the wheel's done, it goes and pulls the wheels out and then puts the other wheel in. And so we can run now wheels basically 24/7. And with our growth and with the complexity of the designs, I'll show you when we get back in the other room, our wheels used to take about an hour to do that milling operation when I first started working here. It took an hour. We have some that take 9 hours each, okay? Some of our designs, and so we actually are always struggling for capacity, and so this machine will allow us to basically increase our capacity significantly and also keep the repeatability and the quality high. So unfortunately it's not running. I can't have anything running, otherwise you guys wouldn't be able to hear me. because the air and everything, it's all really loud. But before lunch or at break, if you guys want to walk around through here, feel free. Just be careful touching the chips because they're sharp, and also anything near the chips is going to be fairly oily, so you don't want to, it's going to get vegetable oil on your clothes or something. So, but you guys can look through here. It's fine. There's nothing that's proprietary, and if it is, you probably won't realize it, so it's not a big deal. So. But you can see here, some of these, these ran last night, and it's after the guys basically loaded it all up, and honestly, they went and had beers, and then this thing just kept running. And so when we come in the morning, now there's a bunch of wheels that are actually done, and they've actually got a bunch more staged, because as soon as this event's over, our machinists are going to come in and they're going to turn this thing back on, and it's going to run overnight. So. This last one's not hooked up to the cell system. So this one actually has a 3-piece center in it, whereas those are 1-piece wheels. It's the same process. Basically, the way this works is it flips around the other side, and it's going to come in and it's going to do a bunch of machining, do all of this, and it's going to flip it around, and it's going to cut the backside and do all the engraving and everything. And this is, I'll show you when we get in again during the tech session, complexity of the machining, the reason why, much more into much more detail on the actual wheel. It'll all make a lot more sense after that. So if you guys want to come down. This is actually our assembly area for 3-piece wheels and our QC area, or final QC. You could see here if you guys want to if you have any questions. So
tell them where all their stations
are. Oh yeah, so if you're yellow, you're going to be back up where we started. If you're red,
you're listening to Majestic Casual. Experience music in a new way. Escape everything.
open. I've always let you in, and now I'm sitting here choking on your broken promises. You did me in. Now I'm sinking. Na 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 na, na 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 na, na na na. You said you never meant to hurt me, but you keep your secrets dirty. You said you loved me, she's nothing, but you chose this moment to shut me up. You said you never meant to hurt me, but you keep your secrets dirty. You said you loved me, she's nothing, but you chose this moment to shut me up. You got me ocean. You got me ocean deep. You cut me open. You cut me oh so deep. You left it open. You left me oh so weak. You got me ocean. You got me oceans deep. You've got me ocean. You've got me oceans deep. You cut me open. You cut me oh so deep. You left it open. You left me oh so weak. You've got me oceans. You've got me oceans deep.
We design them. We have 3 styles, and I'll explain the differences. I think we're ready to go. So let me start. I'm gonna go over some of the different construction methods for making wheels. I'm gonna go into some of the design drivers, why we do what we do. You'll see some of these wheels have a lot of cuts and things, and a lot of people assume they're decorative. They're not always decorative. They end up being beautiful, but they're usually there for a reason. I was out back in it was clear I was talking to an engineer because he knew exactly why right off the bat. And then I want to talk about why some of the performance wheels, why you want wheels to be the way they are, and so that you have an understanding of wheel technology in general. I know it seems really boring. I'm going to talk about a round piece of aluminum, right? And so hopefully it's a little more interesting than that. So first thing, HRE has multiple types of wheels. We have what's called a one-piece forged wheel. We have a 3-piece forged wheel, which is the center, this outer rim half, this inner rim half, and then we have a cast flow form wheel. There's also two-piece wheels. There's wheels in different materials. This is our primary wheel. This is a forged one-piece wheel. It uses 6061 T6, which is standard aerospace aluminum. And the way this is made is actually really pretty interesting. It starts as a solid block, billet, bar stock, and then it gets forged into this shape here, which is a huge press. It gets heated and a huge press comes down and basically presses it into this forged shape. And a lot of people think that makes it denser, and that doesn't really help us if it made it denser because it'd be heavier. What it does, it changes the crystalline structure of the aluminum and makes it stronger, okay? And so for there, but it still doesn't have the barrel. So what it needs is the barrel so that we can actually, make the inside of the wheel. What they're gonna do is they're gonna take that forging, they put it on a big mandrel, and they spin it, and it's called flow forming. It's almost like a potter's wheel. When you're making a clay pot, you take the clay and you can stretch it up, right? It's the same thing, except you're doing it with aluminum, so it takes a lot more force. But putting all that work into the aluminum, again, refines that crystalline structure in the aluminum and makes that barrel very, very strong. So a typical cast barrel, where cast barrel is just you pour the molten aluminum in and then you have a full wheel. The cross sections on that are typically 5-6 millimeters. We're going to do we're going to do 2.5 millimeters, significantly thinner because we have a significantly stronger product. And so after that, this is what we're going to purchase. We're going to purchase this forged blank either to our specifications or the supplier has it. And then we're going to turn it, which you saw out back, and then we're going to mill it, and then we're going to clean it and prep it and do all of that. The other methodology that we have is three-piece. And it's very similar. The center section is identical, except it doesn't have the barrel. And the barrel is made up of two sheets, and you can see the whole assembly is fastened together with high-strength fasteners. These barrels are actually made in a very similar way to the flow-form barrel on the one-piece, but they start out as a blank sheet. And so that's spun as well, and it also strengthens the barrel. So instead of doing it with solid, you're doing it with sheet, and it's called spinning versus flow forming. But it's essentially the same thing. The advantage of a three-piece is you have a lot of flexibility. So I was just talking to someone who has a 993 race car, actually, it was you, and talking about getting different fitments. And with a one-piece, you may not have the flexibility. So with a three-piece wheel, you have a lot more flexibility to get to the fitment that you need.
So that barrel starts as a flat?
Starts as a flat piece. Starts just like this, and then it gets spun out, right? So that, you can imagine, it gets spun over a mandrel. So it makes it much stronger, and it gets thinned as well. So that's the three-piece. And this is a cast full form. So this wheel starts out as a cast wheel. The difference between forged starting with solid, casting you're starting with molten aluminum. You're pouring it into a mold. And that's how most wheels are made. The difference with this one is it's only the cast barrel is very short, just like this on the forging. And so to get the barrel, they take that casting and they flow form the barrel out. And then that allows us to have a thin barrel just like we have on a forged one piece. And so in terms of cast wheels, this is the best way to make a cast wheel, because you have the cast face, but you have the nice lightweight barrel. So, and it's much stronger. So the advantage here is these are not made to order. All of our other wheels are made to order. These are made in high volume, and they're stocked. And obviously it's a much lower price point. So this is, I think, $2,500 for a set. A typical wheel like this, I think this one is close to $12,000 for a set. So now, obviously, the forged wheels, we're able to make them stronger. We're able to make them lighter. Do you guys know why wheels should be lightweight? Performance wheels, anyway? Do you guys know? You guys know wheels should be lightweight, right? Yes? Say yes. And the reason is, there's multiple reasons, okay? So we talk about performance wheels. HRE is a performance wheel company. Even our street stuff, whether we're making stuff for motorsport, like on the Porsche race car, or we're making something for the street, we still want it to be a performance wheel. And that means it needs to be lightweight. It needs to be strong, because the cars that we drive pull high Gs, and it needs to have low rotational inertia. And that is sort of like the rotational mass. And a couple of the ways to think about this, there's the unsprung mass is the first thing. You want it to be lightweight because it affects your handling and your ride comfort. So on the street, if you put a really big heavy wheel on your car and you're going over disturbances and bumps and stuff like that, it's going to really upset the ride comfort. The heavier the wheel is, the more force it puts into the chassis. Okay, so the heavier the wheels, the brakes, and the tire, all of that's the unsprung mass. That's going to translate into force upsetting the chassis, and you don't want that. On the racetrack, you also don't want that because then it's moving the car. When you want the wheels to just be going over the rumble strips and things, you don't want the car moving. You want the wheels just moving, and you can have you can imagine the lighter the wheel is, the more it's going to go over the rumble strips. So that's one of the main reasons you want to have a lightweight wheel in terms of the mass. But there's another thing called rotational inertia, which is sort of the rotational mass, and that has to do with your acceleration and deceleration. You can imagine if the wheel has more rotational inertia, it takes more energy to get the wheel going, and then it's going to take more energy to get the wheel stopped. So under braking, you're going to extend your stopping distances. And rotational inertia is, I use this example all the time. You have an ice skater, and they have their arms out, and they're spinning slowly, and they pull their arms in, they spin faster. They haven't put any energy in, so it allows them to go faster. What they've done is they've reduced that rotational inertia and allows them to go faster. Okay, we don't have the ability to move it, but we can minimize it, and so we'll do things like on the back of this wheel, when it's bolted together, you can't see it, but in between each fastener hole, there's a little lightning hole here. And that's because you want, the rotational inertia is a function of the mass, the distance from the rotational center. So more mass you have out far, the more rotational inertia you're going to get. So if you take your Prius and you try to put really huge wheels on it, you're going to really ruin it because you're going to ruin the gas mileage and all of that stuff. Same thing if you take your Cayenne and put massive heavy wheels on it, you're going to upset the stopping distance, right? And then you may run into the Prius in front of you, right? So we don't want to do that. We're a performance wheel company, so we want to keep the unsprung mass low. We want to keep the rotational inertia low. We also want to keep the stiffness high. Stiffness matters for handling. So you can imagine if you're running around and the wheel's sort of flexible and it's kind of like a wet noodle, if you're on the track or something like that, you go to turn in, it's not going to turn in very well. The wheel's going to flex, and then the suspension and everything is going to be playing catch up to the wheel. And so just like with tires, you don't want to have super soft tires, right? You want to have it so that you can turn in quickly. So if you have wheels that are flexible, it just means the suspension has another spring, essentially, that it has to work into the equation, and you're not going to be able to dial in your suspension very well, and it's going to feel sloppy, and it's going to feel, it's not going to be very crisp handling, right? So all of those things matter, but you have to take all those things and try to minimize the mass, make them strong, make them light, make them stiff. Those things compete. Anybody can make a lightweight wheel. Anybody. I can make all our wheels weigh 15 pounds, but they won't be strong enough, right? Back of 911s actually put a lot of stress on wheels. And so the trick is, how do you make the wheels strong enough and keep them lightweight? There's a lot of things we do. So if you look at this wheel, actually this one over here is a good example. This P101, you'll see there's some pockets that we've come and cut out the back. That's really to get rid of that unsprung mass that I was talking about. It's pretty close to the center of rotation, so it's not adding a lot of rotational inertia. But if you come over here, you'll see we're coming in and sort of cutting out the sides, and you'll see this even more prominently on our motorsport wheels. And the reason you do that is because in bending, which is when you're going around a corner, you're putting the spokes in bending. And have you guys ever seen an I-beam? You know what an I-beam looks like? It looks like a capital I. It has a shear panel down the middle and has two structures at the top. It's a bending structure. When you bend it, the top goes in tension, the bottom goes in compression. If it was just a rectangle, the middle would have no stress, right? Because it's got to go from tension to compression. So if it's symmetrical, it's going to be zero stress in the middle. So what you do is you go and you cut that material out because you don't need it. And so we do that similarly with wheels. So if you look at the motorsport product, you'll see it's much more severe. Now we can't do it go too crazy because there are compressive stresses and normal axial stresses as well. But that's why you'll see those cuts, those side cuts. They're not purely decorative. They're there for a reason to get rid of inefficient mass, essentially. And so those are some of the techniques that we use to further reduce the unsprung mass and rotational inertia. And then on some of our three-piece wheels, we'll use titanium fasteners. That helps with the rotational inertia and unsprung mass as well. Things like that. Let's see. In general, here's something that I think that's interesting. HRE makes multiple. I was mentioning motorsport. I was mentioning street. I was mentioning Cayennes. We make wheels for the track. We make wheels for the street. We make SUV wheels, and those aren't all the same wheels. Wheels have to be load rated properly for the application. Cayennes actually have a huge load rating because they're able to tow a ton. They're able to haul a lot. And so the wheel that we put on a Cayenne is not the same as a wheel that we would put on a 911. And so that's something to be really careful if you're out buying wheels. Just because you can actually fit it on there doesn't mean that it's necessarily appropriate. You know, like I said before, anybody can make a wheel lightweight, but it needs to be strong. The other scary thing is, in the United States, there's not actually any certification requirement. There's recommended requirements by SAE and other things, but in order to be in the wheel business, if you want to be in the wheel business, you can literally take a wheel design down to a machine shop and machine it and sell it. And there doesn't have to be any testing, there doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to show anyone that the thing is structurally sound in any way. There's no DOT. So the manufacturers have their, but I think they self-certify. I mean, just so you know, manufacturer wheels are very conservative. They're going to be very, very strong. But in the aftermarket, you have to be careful because there is no such certification. In Germany, there is. That's called TUV. And so for us to sell wheels into Europe, we have an office actually in Stuttgart. And we have to have all of our wheels tested and certified. And they come and audit our facility here to make sure that we're not sending them a ringer. So we have to get our quality system audited every 2 years. And I just mention that because sometimes it's not that people are intentionally making something that doesn't work. They just don't know better. You know, they think, oh, I've got a forged, I can get a forging, go buy a forging, and I can cut that into a design. It's going to be strong because it's forged. Because forged aluminum is stronger than cast aluminum. I talked about that before with the grain structure, right? So they think, oh, it's just going to be stronger. Millimeters matter. Millimeters matter. I mean, often we're tweaking designs by 1 or 2 millimeters or less to hit the strength targets that we need. And so it is significant, and you can easily go out and spend a lot of money on something that isn't really safe.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you explain the trend from the sizes of the wheels from
Small to big.
right? I mean, now everything is, you know, I mean, you go from 15s
Yeah.
to 20s, and
Yeah.
now that seems to be the
There's multiple factors. Some of it's just car design. So if you look, cars are getting bigger, and so the belt lines are taller. That means they need to fill that space up more. So there's the driver due to car design. There's the performance levels are getting higher, and that means the brakes are getting bigger. And so in a lot of cases, they're putting bigger wheels on to fit over the bigger brakes. And also increasing the diameter is one of the few ways you can increase the contact patch. And so that allows you to have a little bit more grip. And so even on some performance cars, like you look at a GT3 RS, has a 21-inch rear, which 21's coming from the factory on a 911, like blows my mind, right? It's crazy. I'm sure Porsche has a really good reason for that, right? And so there, for us, it's okay. We have that ability to keep going up. And honestly, from a design perspective, it's nicer because the wheels are easier. You have more design freedom when you have more room to make the design. The proportions and everything look better. So we like that, but we do recognize that that rotational inertia we were talking about increases potentially, right? And so the challenge for us as wheels get bigger, we need to keep the weights down and the rotational inertia down, and it makes our job a little bit harder in a lot of cases. But I know that it's multiple reasons. I mean, we could, you know, you can't just blame Brembo. It's driven by the manufacturers and the design and performance levels and the weights and things like that. So. Another thing I want to mention, I was talking about motorsport. be really careful with, a lot of you guys track your wheels, make sure you inspect your wheels. They will fatigue over time. So if you have wheels that have seen a lot of track time, you should be looking for cracks eventually to develop. Wheels in general, I can design wheels that will never crack on the racetrack. Never. And you will win no races because those wheels will be too heavy. Okay. So to have a lightweight wheel that's stiff and has the low rotational inertia and unsprung mass and all that, they need to be lightweight. They're going to be strong, I'll be honest. A lot of people think a motorsport wheel is actually weak. Oh, you can only ride it on the track. Motorsport wheel has to be really strong because the loads are high, right? So our motorsport wheels are really, really beefy. But aluminum fatigues. And it, unlike steel, it doesn't have it almost does, but you do need to pay attention and look for that. And don't let anybody tell that you can recertify it for another period of time. Like, oh, I took it, sent it back to the manufacturer, and they inspected it. It's good for 2 more years. The crack could happen tomorrow. Okay, it's really, really difficult. There are ways to see if a crack is about to occur. It's difficult. Nobody's really doing that.
Can you magniflux those centers on a 3-piece wheel?
Yeah, and so if you magniflux them, you'll see that if they're starting to crack, something like that. And
But what if there's no cracks?
there are ways to see it, but it's difficult. And so it's going to be probably expensive. And
I mean, to
yeah.
support that, I've had CCW wheels on the
Yeah.
back of my track car.
Yeah.
And they've been on there 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And we were mounting up some tires, and my son goes, "Have you seen this?"
Yeah.
And you know, the centers of those, I mean, they're
Yeah.
tried and true, never
Yeah.
break. You couldn't.
Yeah.
4 cracks.
Yeah.
All the way through 4 spokes.
Yeah.
All the way around the back.
And once it starts to crack, it's then going to start overloading the spokes next to them, and so the cracks are going to run. So, and it's nothing to say that CCW wheel isn't strong enough. It's just you've been running on it for 6 or 7 years of hard track use, and so for us, when we're designing wheels for professional teams, we expect them to get 2 seasons.
Yeah, that's
You know, because they're running professional races, right? And if they get less than that, we try to beef it up more. In a lot of cases, our teams have been running 4 or 5 seasons, and that tells us that we made the wheels too strong. We should have probably made them lighter weight, right? So just be cautious with that kind of thing. I've heard people say, no, I sent it back, and they said, yeah, it's good, you're good, and then they have false confidence.
We were going to take
Yeah.
the other 2 sets, take them
Yeah.
apart and magniflux.
Yeah, and that's smart to do.
But I'm kind of freaked out after seeing that. You know, it's like 165 at the bank
Yeah.
in Fontana. And
Yeah, and that's what I mean. You should, whenever you're
maybe just get a new one.
putting on new tires is a great time, or every track event. You know, yeah, exactly. Whenever you're cleaning them, you should look, and they're gonna cracks are usually gonna hurt the high stress areas. High stress areas is at the base of the spokes here, and then out at the ends of the spokes here usually, and it's usually gonna happen on the back. Was it on the back of the spoke?
We noticed it when we noticed
Yeah.
it.
Oh, it was already through.
Yeah, it was all the way
Yeah.
through.
So just be careful. A lot of Porsche owners track their cars, and your OE wheels should be fine. You can run them, but if you're tracking every weekend, that's a different story. Even your OE wheels, you need to be looking at them over time, right?
You said 18,000 miles of track.
Yeah, there you go. That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot of miles on that car.
Our wheels have a lifetime structural warranty, so if you're running around on the street, we want it to be just like your OE wheel. It should never crack. If you take it to the track, that's a different story. You know, we want you. In fact, we encourage people to go out and try to crack them, because then it tells us how much time we're going to get out of these and how hard we can how close we are to that limit, right? So, but I just wanted to warn you guys about that. So a lot of people have a false sense of security there, and that's never good. You should always, if you're racing, you should be inspecting. And so, professional teams throw wheels away. They not necessarily don't have any cracks yet. They've been this many hours, and they just toss them, right? So, you guys have any questions? I know that was a little, yeah.
Is all your designing done here?
Yes.
And I know that you used to probably design.
I'm still designing some wheels. In fact, I was here late last night because I was trying to get something done. So they let me design wheels every once in a while. I'm more conservative. I like things clean and simple. And a wheel like this is not clean. It's clean and simple in some ways, but it's very complex from a machining perspective. These complex surfaces here, anybody a machinist here? No? Old wheels, you'd come in and just cut straight. That's really fast. That would take an hour. This wheel, you have to come in and it's almost like you pass over this same window feature, 100 times. And so this wheel takes about 6 hours to cut. And so the complexity on the style side has gotten so much higher. But it's sort of required because that's what our customers are expecting that now. If we just made everything simple, like this design is very simple, right? This wheel costs half that wheel. And that one outsells this wheel by a factor of 10, right? So it's not that our sales aren't driven by price. Our sales are driven by the quality and the complexity, and people want the more refined product. So yeah.
So are one of these yours that we're seeing your design?
Yeah, some of them. I'm not going to point the ones out, but because I'm looking around, I'm like, they're kind of, they're looking a little old. I do have some new stuff coming out that I love, and I think is fresh and still traditional, but fresh.
They keep you around for the vintage style.
They do, in fact, keep me around for the vintage styles. And
Question on the
yeah.
the cast versus the forged.
Yeah.
The same size wheel.
Yeah.
Two things. One, how does the weight compare?
Mhm.
And then secondly, how does the exterior mass compare for that centrifugal? Right.
On a flow form wheel, the exterior mass here is going to be fairly similar because the barrel cross sections and everything are very similar to a forged. So the rotational inertia isn't going to be that much different on a flow form cast wheel. On a normal cast wheel that's just cheap and doesn't have that process, it's significantly heavier. You can walk up and you can grab the barrel and it's, oh my gosh, it's really thick. Cast wheels also have less toughness. Now toughness. In engineering terms, toughness means the ability to absorb energy. And so when you hit a pothole, cast materials have lower toughness than forged materials. And so they'll often crack. I don't know if you've ever hit a pothole and cracked a wheel. They crack. A forged wheel will usually bend more before you have to really smack it and to get it to crack. I mean, it's still probably bent to the point where it's ruined, but it'll absorb a lot more energy, and you want that. You want to. I'll be honest. You don't want your suspension to be damaged. You want to damage the wheel, right? The wheel's the part that's the sacrificial piece. So, but cast wheels have less toughness and so are more susceptible to potholes as well. Weight, we get about a 20% savings. The material itself is probably 40% stronger, forged versus cast, but there's geometric constraints and other things like that where we have to have a little bit of extra mass just so we can bolt it to the car and things. And so that mass doesn't change. The densities are very similar, so if you have the material needed to bolt it on, it's going to weigh the same in a lot of cases. So the difference is really how much material are we putting here in the spoke and the load rating that goes with that. So I may put this same amount of material in a forged wheel and it'll weigh exactly the same. The forged wheel will be stronger and it'll have a higher load rating than that one. Yeah.
Have you used other metals like magnesium before?
So HRE is looking at, we're looking at other advanced alloys. Magnesium is tough. Magnesium is awesome because its specific strength is very high, which means its strength for weight is very high. It has some downsides, corrosion resistance, and some temperature issues and some things like that. And a lot of people like, oh, it's going to catch on fire. They don't really do that. And Porsche puts them on the 918 and the Courier GT. But there aren't, in fact, those are the only two cars I know that have magnesium wheels from the factory. We would love to. The problem is, it's for manufacturer, it's tough because you do have to separate that from the aluminum and you do have to deal with the chips and all that because you can burn the building down with magnesium dust and chips and things like that. So it sort of requires a separate manufacturing facility, and we're not set up for that. And so that's crushed my dreams of having a forged magnesium wheel for many years. But we are looking at other alloys. And there's carbon. So there's carbon and there's other advanced aluminum alloys. Carbon, everybody's doing carbon. Wheels are tough with carbon. Carbon... Both, but you can imagine, you can mix them, yeah. And
Carbon center?
yep, you can do carbon center, aluminum, you could do vice versa. Wheels are tough. Wheels have impact. They have to be strong. They have to be this. And everyone's like, oh, carbon fiber is super strong. It is, but not when you're impacting the fibers 90 degrees to the fiber. If you're pulling on the fibers, they're super strong. And in aerospace, you fine-tune the layups and fine-tune all of that so you get the right stiffness. And if you have something that's susceptible to impact, you can hide it. You can put it somewhere where, and you put another layer of something else or different material in the leading edge of a wing or something where you're going to get an impact. And so you can fine-tune where in the placement and the application. Wheels, you're susceptible to environment, impact, fatigue. Carbon fatigue is ridiculous. You can pass any fatigue test, but it's impact that really drives design on the carbon side. And so,
What about titanium?
titanium, you could make, yeah, you could make a titanium wheel. Titanium's difficult to machine. So doing this methodology where you're starting with a solid and cutting it away, one, it would be extremely expensive because the titanium itself is expensive, and then the machining would take a long time. And so its strength benefits are great because high-strength titanium has similar strengths to high-strength steel, but with significantly less weight. The weird thing, though, is titanium has strengths similar to steel, so you can imagine what would happen to wheel design. These cross-sections and everything look proper because it's aluminum. If you make something out of steel, I could get thin this out so much that it would actually look really kind of weird on your car. You know, you ever notice steelies are just a flat plate with some holes drilled in them? They're super thin, but they're super strong because it's steel. Titanium would be similar, right? So if I made something like this out of titanium, the cross-section would be so thin, it would look like, it just wouldn't look appropriate for the vehicle. So from a stylistic perspective, it's not that interesting. From an engineer's perspective, sure, that's awesome. But, and just a pure performance perspective. But from a design perspective, I think we'd all be really unhappy with the final result. But we are looking at other things too. There's potentially, 3D printing and all kinds of other things with metals and things. So, yeah.
Now Momo, they're still staying in the motorsport wheels side, and they bought those other companies.
Yeah.
Are their motorsport wheels all magnesium?
I have
Or do they
no,
still make a magnesium?
I don't think they do. Yeah, very few people make magnesium wheels these days. There's some manufacturers in Japan, and so like the Formula One wheels, a lot of them are made from the same factory, even though they have different brand names on them, because there's not a lot of forged wheel manufacture of magnesium. Cast magnesium is, I don't think anybody makes, cast magnesium anymore. Mag wheels, they all cracked, right? Mag wheel in the day, that was because that was cast magnesium. I don't think anybody makes anything cast magnesium anymore. And so a forged magnesium product is extremely expensive. And so the applications are very, very limited. And also with some of the downsides with, like I said, corrosion resistance and things like that, it makes it a difficult application for the street. So it'd be
Which wheel is typically your motorsport wheel you sell for Porsche is the most for the track?
it would be what's on the wall there. That's it looks very similar to this P101. It's an R101. It's a one-piece, and it's it looks like this, but this wheel is beautiful, and is a perfect blend between high performance, lightweight, and strength. The R101 is designed in a very similar fashion, but with the focus being purely on performance. And in fact, we make what we call our R101 lightweight program, where we actually have some vehicles chosen, and we'll design the wheel specifically for that car. A normal car, if you're going to change the offset and the fitment, you'll move this pad in and out. But the face stays where it is. On our R101 lightweights, we'll move that with, and so we're basically going to take all of the extra material out. And we've got wheels that are down in the 15-pound, 16, 17-pound range. And so those are dedicated for a particular application, like GT4, I know we have it, and some others.
So you change the whole design. So
It's basically a one-off wheel. It looks so the R101 Lamborghini wheel looks kind of like the R101 wheels for Porsche, but you could see one goes way deeper and it's cut out more. And essentially, it's a one-off for a specific application. Yeah.
what do those wheels run just for
2,500. Yeah, about. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Yep.
You're primarily just all street, your flow.
Yeah, actually, the flow form, they're pretty strong. So what we have in some cases,
Would you recommend them for weekend track?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so what we're finding is a lot of people want to either keep their factory wheels pristine, or they have another set of forged HREs, and they don't want to track those because they paid $10,000, $12,000 for them.
There's the rationale. We
Right?
get those on the street.
Yeah. And so they'll buy flow form wheels for the track. And so we're actually getting customers we didn't think that was going to be a motivation for people to buy flow form. This is really meant to be an entry level product. So, if you have an Audi S4, you have something, you want to be in the HRE family, but this is $12,000. Okay, this is $2,500. So you get to start having that HRE experience. And we know that once you're in the family, you're probably going to stay in the family, and so.
$50,000 GT3, I think I'd be using that.
And in fact, this is in our P2 series, and this is the number one selling style. And so the P101, this is $10,000, $11,000. This is our number one selling wheel. This wheel is second. So two of our most expensive wheels are our best sellers. So that's awesome. So yeah, for sure. And if you look at our customer base, like Porsche is our biggest mark, so we sell mostly Porsche wheels. In terms of the different manufacturers, BMW is probably second, particularly with the M3, M4. But the car will change over time. Sometimes it's the 911 Turbo, GT3s. When the new Panamera hits, we're going to do a lot of Panamera sales probably. So when the first Panamera hit, Panamera was our biggest car that year. But there was a year when Porsche didn't have a lot of new product, and the Ferrari 458 was our biggest car. And that's a fairly low volume car, so it gives you some sense of our customer base, and that's why these are the number one selling wheels, right? So, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the wheels that you have out there on special for Porsches?
Yes, those are Flowform. So that's one of the Flowform wheels, one of the Flowform styles. That's our FF15. That's actually really light. It's a really lightweight wheel. That's actually a great one for doing what you were saying, which is taking it to the track. And it's but the same construction methodology. We designed it here, and we have it made in Japan. You can't actually get something like that made in the United States. There's not anybody that really has that capability, except for Japanese companies that make wheels here for the OEs and go on the assembly line. So there are factories that do it, but they're not aftermarket. So, yeah, but those are great, and those are. Yeah, absolutely. And so we sell a ton of Flowform wheels into Germany, and they will pass. That's the thing. So the strength requirements is based on the vehicle. So Porsche 911 needs a certain rating, and what we're going to do is we're going to target a wheel line at a certain target class of vehicles. And that means in some cases the wheels will be extra strong for what they need. But Porsche requirements, actually, particularly in the rear, are pretty high. In the front, it's not so much. 911 front wheels are pretty light. But the rear, they put a lot of stress on the wheels. So the load rating of these wheels is going to be the same that we have for our forged wheels for the same application. And so, which is a normal street car application. And so if we're going to sell that wheel in Germany, we have to send them to Germany first and have them tested in the Porsche fitment, and then certified that, yes, these are able to go on the Porsche 911s.
So is there any reason that, other than maybe just for, design or appearance, I would want that over just my OEM if I'm just doing straight car driving?
Your OEM wheels are actually really nice. They're probably not as lightweight as our product. The difference is HRE, and Porsche does a good job with wheels, don't get me wrong. I mean, the wheels are going to be super strong. Stylistically, if you like them, then yeah. The difference is they're designing a car, and the wheel is a part of it, and they don't have the time to focus on refining that wheel to the level that we do. This is our life. We don't have an option. We have to go all in. And so, we only focus on the wheel. And so there's an OE wheel on the NSX, very, very similar to this. And if you look at it up close, it's clear, it's from an engineering perspective. I put my engineer hat on. There's just nothing wrong with it. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's clear it meets all of the engineering requirements. We actually made wheels for them for their development, running at the Nürburgring and stuff. And so we know what the requirements are. So, and we know the OE wheels are fantastic, but the refinement in the style is lacking. And so they're just not as pretty. So a lot of people are like, oh, look at the wheel, it looks just like yours. It's like, not side by side. And it's clear we just spent a lot more time on it because we have to. They have to check the boxes. Okay, we got to move on. We got to finish the rest of the car. So, yeah. But there's nothing wrong with your factory wheels. They're typically going to be a little bit heavier, like I said, because they're going to be very conservative in terms of strength. Normal 911 wheel or something, or a Boxster or Cayman wheel, usually going to be cast flow form, similar construction to that. The higher end products will be one-piece forged, and then 918s are one-piece forged magnesium, and those are $40,000. So they make us even seem cheap. So, yeah.
Are you strictly aftermarket, or do the manufacturers let you swap their wheels for yours?
We work with some small manufacturers, and we're doing some stuff. I can't discuss who and what. We do some private label wheels. Actually, somebody was out and looking at the Gumpert wheels. We make wheels for Gumpert. There's some supercar companies like that, and some other electric car companies and things that we work with, that we're working with. Primarily, we don't do OE business, though, or OE specialty business. We're going to support, like I said, we supported Honda on the engineering. So we do a lot of engineering support work for Honda because they need wheels short term for testing, things like that. And that's really where we're set up. If we were to do OE business, it couldn't be here. This is set up for flexibility, not. So, okay, I got to wrap it up. So I'm sorry.
You're listening
guys.
to
Yep.
Majestic Casual. Experience music in a new way. Escape everything.
So what I want to kind of go over is with Akrapovic, give you guys kind of a little history of the company, as well as kind of give you what the passion is behind the company and really the why, what they do. So first off, so who's familiar with Akrapovic? Oh, awesome, good. So again, I hear it said all sorts of different ways. I hear it Akrapovic, I hear it Akrapovic. The best way I usually tell people is just pretend there's a little H at the end, Akrapovic. So that's my quick and easy way. The company was founded by Igor Akrapovic. His passion was motorcycle. He started by just kind of tweaking and tuning his own bikes because he didn't feel that he didn't have the availability to what he wanted to get sound-wise, performance-wise out of his own bike. So it really started just kind of your typical garage shop guy that just had the passion. That grew into more into the MotoGP, World Superbike, until eventually in early 90s they founded Akrapovic. The actual logo itself, I get a lot of questions. People will say, what is the logo? Akrapovic itself is a Slovenian company. So Akrapovic roughly means kind of like scorpion. So the actual company name was Scorpion at one point. The logo itself looked like a little scorpion. So just imagine little claws, little tail. So that's the logo. Little fun fact right there. Igor Akrapovic had that passion in motorcycle. They had the race-proven technology through their racing history. They figured out with materials what worked, and he was really the first to pioneer using titanium, which is a big part of what Akrapovic does. Most all their systems are made out of titanium, and this is really what sets them apart from other companies. Of course, other companies use titanium, but there's a certain way that you use titanium that really makes it different than all the rest. As they went through in the motorcycle side of their business and their history, they eventually started getting into Formula One, working with Honda, the GT2, and they were in the race side, working with OEM race teams. So you didn't really see Akrapovic on car exhaust, but it was there. They were kind of in the back end doing their thing, figuring out what worked, really working on high-end material technology and proven history on the track. Right around early 2000s, they finally broke into the aftermarket industry for car exhaust. And then from there, they've constantly been pushing themselves and not following the industry as far as where to go next. And that is kind of what I want to get through to you guys today, hopefully, is Akrapovic is a company of passion. They're a company of integrity when it comes to what they're doing. They're not just an exhaust company. You can almost consider it an R&D company that just happens to make exhaust as well, because the amount of things that they're doing as a company at new material technology, testing technology, sound engineering, even manufacturing processes, it is so different in their industry, and it's so advanced that it really is incredible. So starting with the first thing that really is very interesting with what they do, again, the difference between titanium and like standard stainless steel. Akrapovic does some stainless steel as well, as well as their titanium is a proprietary titanium alloy. So this isn't just you get off the shelf, billet titanium block and put it in the system, as well as their stainless steel. This is their proprietary alloy. Titanium is very sensitive to heat and oxygen exposure. So that being said, they actually put every batch of titanium as well as their stainless steel. Any material going into production goes through extensive quality control testing before it even makes it out to the shop floor. They look at the grain structure of every titanium batch to make sure that it is not going to corrode and have any sort of risk of failure on the road. So basically, from the moment they start, they're testing every single piece of what they're doing. And they're also tracing that. So the initial batch of titanium or material that goes in, however long this system is on the vehicle, if there is any kind of issue, damage, or you're in an accident or something like that needs to be replaced, they can trace this system to the original batch of titanium alloy that they started with. So the traceability through their product and the quality through their product is really incredible, and that just kind of highlights to them the very first thing they do to start with is quality control and testing themselves. If the material doesn't meet up to their standard by just a little bit over or a little bit under the standard, whatever that is, they don't use it. They send it back. They don't use bad material. They don't waver from that at all. So I'm going to pass these around. These are basically, this is a titanium cold rolled tube that's welded to a casted titanium flange. And this is a stainless, the same version. So first thing, feel the weight difference on these two parts. Titanium is typically about 40% lighter than like your stainless steel. But the cool thing with these two parts is Akrapovic has their own foundry, which is huge. They actually are one of the larger suppliers of titanium in several different industries as well, just because they've developed such an advanced process and advanced quality in titanium metallurgy. What that allows them to do is make really unique parts like casted titanium flanges. Typically, other exhaust systems, it would just be a cut plate weld and cut hole through it. So it's not your typical exhaust. All these parts that you see typically around here, these are all casted pieces. This valve assembly, same thing. So with the ability to have a foundry and make casted parts, you can do really unique stuff like this here. This part right here, this is a valve flap. Basically, this would control fully open and closed to control not only the sound of the system, as well as control different back pressure and things like that to help performance of the system, depending at different throttle positions and things like that as you're driving. What you see on this here, so they could have just made one solid wraparound piece and it would be flat on the outside, but that would add more weight. So they've designed this part, they've tested it to be able to cut enough weight out of all these spots here while making sure it's still reinforced properly to what it needs to be, which is usually well above the normal standard of what it needs to be. Even the OEM standard, they go beyond that because that's just what they do. They're always pushing themselves to a much higher standard. So this part right here, when I was at the factory and had a chance to go through their facility, they start with a wax mold, essentially molding this part in a wax mold, and they are making a tree assembly of, say, maybe 30 parts of these. They have to then dip those molds several times in a ceramic type coating over the course of about 5 days, even before it's ready to have the liquid titanium poured into it to make this part. So just to make this one part, it can take almost a week to do. Any other company would not spend that much time, money, and resource to make this part. They would just do a much simpler, easier version of, cut, weld, and make this part and get a similar result. But the main difference is the longevity of that part. That cut and weld has a lot of potential stress points on it, potential failure points, obstruction of airflow and heat dynamics that's going through this part. So this is a pretty unique part. Passing this one around here.
Where's the factory?
It's in Slovenia, so it's actually located in Ljubljana. which is not a huge town in Slovenia. But that's the cool thing. So Akrapovic has 2 facilities. They're about 1,000-person strong company. Everyone that works there, when you go through the shop floor and you're watching all the different stuff that they're doing, and you talk to them, they're really, really enthusiastic about what they do. I mean, they genuinely have passion and enjoy making this product for you, essentially. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're trying to make basically every product, every piece that they're doing in their department, they want to put themselves in that product and give their heart to that product to make sure that you are enjoying something that they truly are passionate about as well. And that's the difference. It's not just another widget for them. They're just making a bunch of units and shipping them out and selling them. They're trying to make something that truly everyone has passion for and building that brand that people love. A big difference in how they weld. So obviously an exhaust system takes a tremendous amount of welds. I mean, no matter what you're doing with titanium or stainless, there's a lot of really tough welds. I mean, they go around a lot of different angles. Even to get into these spots is really tough. So all the tubing that they have, it's a cold rolled tube. So it goes down a long belt essentially, and it's slowly getting rolled, and then we'll have a factory welded seam all the way at the very end. So everything's going through, it's getting welded to create the tube itself. The ability that they have with this tubing, this system here doesn't have too extreme of bends on them. Most other companies would, come out to the straight section, cut, get maybe like a 30, 45 degree angle piece, cut, weld. With Akrapovic, they've developed, specific technology in their tube bending capability to be able to do extreme bends. In some cases, 180 degree bends or even more. The amount of stress that creates in this area, considering when the amount of heat that's coming through and it's hitting these points, it's really hard to do that if you don't have that high-end material, that specific type of titanium that they have developed. Their titanium engineer is actually one of the world-renowned titanium engineers in that department. So when you're looking at this type of technology, that's what's really setting them aside from a different company that just would go the easier and more cost-effective route of just cutting, welding, and putting a similar product out. Most of their welders there, they have to basically apprentice for several years on the job before they even let them do critical parts. Most of the company, I believe it's 40%, is actually women. This is because they have actually found that a lot of the welding that they do, women have a much better dexterity when welding. So that's what you're always looking for, is that perfect weld. I mean, it's not easy. I was able to make a fool of myself at the factory when they asked me, hey, do you want to weld? You want to try welding this piece? And I said, sure. I've never welded. I just didn't weld. So I tried and just made a disastrous looking weld, and it just went really terrible. But the amount of years that one of their welders, before they can go into like their R&D department that actually would develop new systems, it's about 15 to 16 years some of those guys have perfected their welding. And the women that work there, it's the same on the shop floor. The women that have worked there, they have such dexterity and such ability to do really precision welds. So these two pieces, passing these around, there's a difference between a machine weld and a hand weld. And these are both titanium pieces. So with Akrapovic, like I said, they have these different abilities to do things that a lot of other companies don't, or don't see the value in spending that much cost, putting that much resource into, because they can get a product that is still on a standard level as the industry. Akrapovic is always looking to see what they can make that is beyond what the industry is doing or has developed. This is really key in their sound. Every system that they do, Akrapovic is designing systems that are sport European tuned exhaust systems. They're not going for the most loud and, kind of just flappy sound of like, how loud can we make it? Loud is very subjective. Sound is very subjective. Akrapovic is going for, when you're in the car, we're going to guarantee that you will not have any drone in the car. Other systems, they just say, okay, we're going to make it really loud. It's going to sound cool. It's going to do all this, when you drive by, it'll set off all the alarms or whatever. But when you get in the car and you're going on a trip and you're cruising on the freeway and your wife or girlfriend or whatever is sitting next to you and she's miserable and you're driving, it's like, wow, it sounds really cool. This is awesome. And then the whole time she's getting this, that boom, 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 that drone in her head that basically wants her, she wants to jump out of the car on the freeway. It's so bad. That is such a difficult thing to perfect getting rid of and to perfect the sound. So they actually have an internal sound engineering department within the company. And this is something that you don't see unless you're in, like a sound company, that is dealing with, audio or things like this or high-end type of industries. What they do is they actually map out the entire sound spectrum of each system. So they can digitally see, through the entire RPM range where it's looking good, where it might be falling off. So say once you kick it into the third gear, maybe it drops and it just sounds kind of flat or whatever. And they go through and they test this. They have their in-house dyno, they test it, and they can see, did you shake that up? Should I get back a little bit? They can really map out the sound of the system. And that is so unique. I mean, I come from a sound engineering background myself in speaker industry, and that's something that we used to do. And for an exhaust system, it's just extremely unique. But that allows them to make a system that's not just loud. They can make a system that sounds very refined. It has the aggressiveness when you want it, like that valve, for instance. They allow the ability to adjust also that experience. So like this particular system, this is the GT4 system. There's one on the GT4 that's here. And essentially, this is a vacuum actuated valve, like the one that you have going around. This integrates in with the factory system. So your factory sport button that you can use, or your throttle position as you're, if you slam it and it goes all the way, it'll supply more vacuum, open the valve, and that's how it operates. You also have a lot of times on their systems, they offer optional sound kits, as well as if you don't have, say, a sport button exhaust, and you have like a base model, you can get the sound kit, which basically there's an electrical control unit that would tie into the system, and you have a Bluetooth key fob that you can press and adjust that sound. So let's say if it's, early morning, people get up and go to work, whatever it may be, and you don't want to be that guy or that woman that's driving through the neighborhood and it's, 4 or 5 in the morning, you can hit your sound button. The valve will close, and it's basically putting it in like quiet mode. So you can, cruise out of the neighborhood, it's quiet, or you just have the ability, if you're on the freeway and you're just on a long trip and you just kind of want to tone it down because you're not in the mood to show off right now, whatever it is, hit your sound button, you can just kind of go in quiet cruise mode. As well as open it up when you really want to have that experience as well. So they developed this type of technology as well to work with their systems also, which is really cool, and it allows them to do that. Yeah.
Does that affect the performance when it's in quiet mode?
Yeah, so when the valve is shut, essentially it's going to create a different back pressure. So there will be a different performance there, which is why the valves would open when you go full throttle. It needs full flow all the way through the system because you're supplying a lot of oxygen, a lot of fuel now at this point, and you need to go all the way through. So when you're cruising around slower or at lower speeds, quiet mode would not affect it in that way. But at higher speeds, it would affect it a little bit as far as the performance. Yeah. It depends a lot of times on the OE, the vehicle itself. So this one right here, this is actually a vacuum actuated diaphragm. So this is just being supplied by the vacuum lines that are coming off your stock system, your vehicle. Other valves, typically on like a lot of the BMW models, they're mostly electronic actuated. So that's where you get a lot of times where you have a lot of different sport mode settings where you go track or sport or whatever, and you have several different settings. With the electronic actuators, you can get a little bit more functionality with that, just because you can get a lot of different position ranges. And also questions, anytime you guys have questions, just feel free to ask. Yeah.
Performance over stock system,
Yeah, so
stock sport system.
yeah. So like with the GT4, this particular system, you're going to be gaining about, I believe it's about 8 horsepower and another 8 foot-pounds of torque on this particular system from factory. Other systems like the GT3, you're going to be dropping a lot of weight. So actually on that particular system for like the GT3, you're going to lose about 48 pounds to 50 pounds of weight from the factory system and gaining, I believe it's about 25 horsepower and about 20 foot-pounds of torque. So the key thing there is with the titanium, it allows them to do that. And also when you're dropping 50 pounds of weight in this section of the car, as you know, that's huge. That's going to affect not only just performance, that's going to be your handling. You're going to feel that weight. It's a lot like what we do with HRE wheels. When you're dropping almost 10 to 12 pounds a corner from your factory wheels to an HRE wheel, you can feel that in your braking, you can feel that in your acceleration, all these things. So that's really a key difference with Akrapovic and what they've developed in that technology. There's a lot of companies now that are coming up to try and get to there with using titanium, but it's the way they're using it that is the main difference there. Yeah.
What would you say the typical weight savings is? I mean, is it something that varies between like something like a GT4 or a GT3 or a turbo? Is it roughly within a certain range of weight with the titanium being lighter than the stainless steel or a factory system?
Yeah, it really does depend on the vehicle. A lot of it has to do with what they are removing from factory. So a lot of the systems that they do will be cat back, so like from your catalytic converter back. So if you're not removing certain components like the catalyst or headers or things like that, that will change on the weight, as well as what's available space-wise in the vehicle itself. So on the GT4, the factory system is not much different in size than this a lot of times. So that's going to be the huge effect there of if the factory system is pretty compact, they can't go too much smaller without affecting sound. So it's that dynamic between, if we make this much smaller and this is much smaller, that's going to create a much different sound that maybe is not as desirable. So it does vary. Some systems even on like the Chevy C7, that's one of our popular systems in the States. It still drops quite a bit of weight from there. I think it's about 20 or 30 pounds.
Yeah, because I think I recall somewhere the Chevrolet Z06, I think they used a titanium exhaust from the factory or something. I know on one of the Z06 models they did, and I know that was what they touted was the weight savings.
Yeah, and that's a big seller is our Z06 system as well. So that's one of them, because from there a lot of them can even take the link pipe sections out and things like that. So it depends how far up in the system you're going. Yeah.
Do you happen to know what the PV level difference would be, say, on a 15 GT3 versus stock versus yours?
The temperance level? Akrapovic doesn't really post a lot of that specific data as far as that. They're also really protective as well as their internal data that they have on their baffling as well. So I don't know offhand on that. But the way they design everything is basically the OE setup. What they do is essentially they get the vehicle and they laser scan the entire undercarriage of the vehicle with the factory system on it. Once they remove that factory system, they then laser scan everything again. So when they're actually designing a system, they're basically designing it in the computer modeling 3D space. So the entire system, which a lot of the industry is like that, everything is modeled first. But what this does is essentially allows them to design a system that is a precision fit system to the factory setup. So that way when you get an Akrapovic system, most guys, they just do the install themselves because it is perfectly fitted. There's no, the bends on the tubing are not, off to where you got to kind of, really kind of make it fit and make it work. That's how they do it. They really try to stick to what the factory setup was originally designed to fit, form and function-wise. So that's a key difference there. And when you look at other systems that are not able to do these precision bends, they've got to cut, weld. All those cuts, all those welds create variances to where maybe it's a little off here, up or down, and that's really what becomes the challenge with other companies that do it, let's say, the cheaper route. So that's a big key difference there. Another thing I really want to show is the composites side of Akrapovic. So Akrapovic makes all of their own carbon fiber composites. So you think of an exhaust company, everything that goes into this, the technology, it's completely different than what this is. So this is a whole other industry, essentially, that they have within the umbrella of their company. This truly is hard to do. The department that mostly does their composites, again, it's actually a lot of women because they find that they have the attention to detail, the dexterity that it takes when you're doing these wet lay carbon fibers. Not only the carbon fiber, the finished piece itself, but the amount of heat and things that it can be able to withstand. This is like a surround for like an exhaust tip. When you look at the actual, the fabric, the carbon fiber itself, it has a certain pattern that it's maintaining all the way through. If it's got one thread that kind of makes a weird little curve or it kind of has a weird dip, it's basically, it's no good for them. They scrap it, they start over. If you look on this as it's passed around, you'll see there's a little label in here. And this is the person that made this piece. They put their number on there, they put their date on there. And essentially what they're doing is they're putting their heart and soul in this piece. This is, to me, this is basically an artwork piece. When they do this, it takes hours and hours of work. I mean, this is not easy to do. And the fact that they sign this piece and they say, this is mine, I made this for you, it's perfect, that says a lot. It's not just another product, it's not just another unit for them. They're making something that is absolutely perfect for you, so that way when you get it, you have that same sense of passion, that same sense of pride that they do. And that is what's, again, so unique about Akrapovic and everything they do. It's not just about making another exhaust system. It's about providing something that you can truly love. So yeah, check this piece out. It's really cool. I'll also pass around. I've got a tip here. I'll start in the back there. So this is a similar piece. This is a tip with the carbon fiber around it. And so again, so every piece of carbon fiber that they do, they're labeling it so that traceability is, again, there. So if for some reason they find a piece that has a defect, they know exactly who did it. So that's a huge thing there. I mean, every company, and we've all worked at places, we all know how it goes. When you put your name on something and you know that you're held accountable to where maybe a year later it comes back or something like that and someone says, hey, there was a defect, you know that you're being held responsible. And that's a huge thing when the enemy, you can kind of go under the radar and not be noticed at certain companies when you're doing something. When you know that you are going to be held accountable like that, that strict ethic, the ethical passion that you have in what you're doing is tremendous. It's a really huge, huge thing. The other piece that I want to pass around again, like I mentioned with Akrapovic, they have the ability to do really extreme pieces. This is actually a fully casted titanium tip. So this would be what would go inside like that other tip. So there'd be like a carbon surround around something like this. There's really no other company that can do this. This actually has to be done again, like that other valve assembly. They have to make a mold, which can take about a week to do. They have to put it basically in a vacuum chambered centrifuge with the molten titanium to do this, because titanium does not like oxygen. When it is exposed to oxygen at a high temperature especially, it can just go really bad. So they had to develop just a completely different technology to make casted titanium parts. So this piece right here is really unique. Normal exhaust company, to make something like that, they would essentially cut sections, bend, cut, weld, bend, and make a large piece like that, which will serve the same purpose, but you're creating something that is just good enough. And that's essentially what Akrapovic does not do. Good enough is not even something that they consider. They are always looking to go past what can we do next, what has the industry not seen, and that is essentially how they work as a company. So
What application is that off of, for Audi, or is that a?
that piece right there, I believe it's for a, yeah, it's RS7, right? Yeah. So that piece was for the Audi RS7. The main thing, again, with Akrapovic, it's really the company culture, the passion that makes the difference. So I hope I got that across to you guys. I'd like to any questions you guys have? Yeah.
So every metal, once it's produced, starts to fatigue, at some point it will break. So how does the fatigue factor compare with, say, a stainless system?
Okay. Yeah. So how does the titanium compare with the stainless materials in respect to like longevity? So again, with how Akrapovic designs their metals, it is proprietary alloys. So they've done that because they weren't satisfied with the longevity of what was available as far as stainless or titanium. So what they do is they guarantee that their systems will last the life of the vehicle. So they've been able to do that by developing the alloy technology and constantly pushing themselves to make it better every step of the way. So like I said, I mentioned their main engineer. He's actually one of the world's leading engineers in titanium. To do that as a company, as an exhaust company, to get basically the expert in titanium alloy, that's huge. And that's essentially how they've achieved making things that they can say, yes, this will last the lifetime of the vehicle. This will not fail or fatigue under normal conditional use and proper install. So that's where they put themselves at. Any other questions? Yeah.
I just want to say that my buddy had a 997 GT3 with his exhaust on it,
Mhm.
and somebody rear-ended him. And so we had to take the exhaust off and put the stock one back up. And it's such a difference between the OE and this one.
Yeah.
And the sound, it's just so stupid, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sounds. We kind of miss it. We haven't put it on. He bought a replacement. We haven't put it on yet. But it just screams, and like you said, it's kind of a refined sound.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. So I'm already in love with it.
Yeah. Well, why hasn't he gotten the new one yet?
You know what? He doesn't have time, so we need to just make time for it to put it back in.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, it's a huge difference. I mean, and again, sound is subjective. Some people say, yeah, I want a loud exhaust. But loud is not always good. There's loud and there's refined.
Right.
So
it's almost both though. 'Cause
yeah.
It's so loud, but
Yeah, I mean, Akrapovic truly tries to make a system that is aggressive, sounds good, but is still to their core foundation of what they are trying to achieve in the industry. Yeah.
Are you guys a take home shop?
What was that?
Are you guys a
Akrapovic, as far as between like TIG and MIG welding, you're saying? They use a variety of different types of welding, obviously, because they do have some of the machine, like CNC welding as well. So they've got several different processes as far as the types of welds that they do. But I believe the majority of it is TIG. Yeah. Any other questions? I think that's about time, almost, yeah?
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes, and then we're going back to basically where you guys started for the HRE Wheels presentation.
Cool.
But again, if any of you
Yeah.
are thinking about it,
We hear what that car sounds like.
Yeah, I believe, I mean, at some point, probably around lunchtime, they're probably going to start everything up, I'm sure. So, yeah, definitely stick around. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're listening to Majestic Casual. Experience music in a new way. Escape everything.
though to me she's nothing, but you chose this a moment to shut me up. You said you'd never meant to hurt me, but you keep your secrets dirty. You said you love me, she's nothing, but you chose this moment to shut me up. You got me ocean. You got me ocean deep. You cut me open. You cut me oh so deep. You left it open. You left me oh so weak. You got me ocean. You got me ocean You've got me ocean. You've got me oceans deep. You cut me open. You cut me oh so deep. You left it open. You left me oh so weak. You've got me oceans. You've got me oceans deep.
All right, so I'll pretend I didn't hear that the last two times. And this is actually the best group. So we're still good morning, right? Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Come on in the house, join us. I'm glad you sat in the front because I did not pay any of them to sit up here. I don't bite. So
Do we get discounts on tires as a result?
I might have something better than that. You have a raffle ticket, don't you?
Yeah.
Hang on to it. So, hey, more reason to go wear them out. But no, welcome everyone. My name is Johnny Valencia. I'm with Michelin North America, based out of beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. That is where our North American headquarters is located. And very quickly, just to give you a little bit of background on who I am and why I'm here, I'm currently the U.S. marketing relationship influencer manager for Michelin. So what that means is folks that are amazing and brands that are amazing, such as HRE Wheels, we partner with them to do several different things throughout the year. And I do want to go back and mention and commend what you heard this morning in the showroom from Alan from HRE as to, he talked a little bit about why they are who they are. And that's a lot of the reasonings of why, who we are and why we choose to partner with the right companies, brands, products, individuals, because their passion, their attention to detail, their attention to design, and not only about the product itself or numbers or volume, but about the people and the end user and the camaraderie
and the community that's created around those brands. That's who we also are very picky to choose to be around and to tie ourselves with. So it's a very, very good fit. It's a very obvious fit when you talk about that. Our tires don't come with wheels, and I know that wheels are factory equipped on vehicles, but at the same time, sometimes you have functional reasons, sometimes you have cosmetic reasons, and we feel that we pair up very well with these guys. So we're very proud to be here, especially for a marque-specific event. So for Porsche, of course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk exactly about everything that we do around the relationship that we have with Porsche. So Michelin in general, we have obviously a huge original equipment relationship when it comes to Porsche. So currently, today, let's say GT3, GT3 RS, Cayman GT4, 918, going back a few gens, you got Carrera GT, and then the non-sports cars, Panamera, well, some of them are sports cars, Panamera, Cayenne, and Macan will all have Michelin products on them. So we're very happy for that. My thing up here on the screen that's rotating through the loop is a little shameless plug for this little event that we had back in January, launching the brand new tire, which is behind me. So Michelin's ultra high performance tire line is now one more family member added with the PS4S. It's the Pilot Sport 4S. So the Super Sport, which has been around for about 5-6 years and has been rated by many folks who rank tires, being up here. We've taken a product that is excelling and that is very competitive and many times outperforms the competition, and we're replacing it because yeah, it's actually, so the question was, what are we replacing? So the Pilot Sport 4S is replacing the Pilot Super Sport. So the Pilot Super Sport will eventually go away. We don't typically completely do away with a product line and bring in a new one. They'll live together for years. And I'll talk a little bit about things like OE requirements from some of the top vehicle manufacturers and how specific end spec fitments have to do with what tires we make, how long we make them for, and how long they're available to you guys, the end users.
The reason why I ask is because one particular size, the 305, 25, 20, that's phased out, or sometimes they were like back ordered for a long, long time. So
the question, yeah, I've got news for you. I've got news for you.
Yeah.
So the question was 305, 25, 20, what happened to it? So we had a Super Sport in that size, and it got discontinued about 6-8 months ago, and it will be reintroduced in the Pilot Sport 4S at the end of the year or in January, close. I've already seen it in the SKU list, but I'll get to that in a minute. But no, thanks for bringing it up. I was happy to see the 25 series tires come back. So the new Pilot Sport 4S launched in March. They're commercially available now. Anyone can get them. However, it is a phased launch. So several sizes were launched, and we have another phase launch with new sizes that will very likely be end of the year or January. So right now it's 19s and 20s, 17s, 18s, and a few 21s will be available in January. So keep an eye out on that. Check our site often for it. But yeah, the launch event that we did in Palm Springs, we had an interesting thing where we were able to let the invited guests not only experience the brand new tire, but experience the culture of Michelin, what we have to offer. So they got to drive amazing vehicles on the tires, and not only the new tire, but our entire Pilot family of tires. We did drives through Joshua Tree National Park, through Box Canyon, out near Thermal Raceway and near Palm Springs. They did on-track activities with lead, follow, high speed. They also did autocross in the wet and the dry, and they were also treated to a few Michelin star dinners by some of the chefs, well, really from around the world. So yeah, so if anybody has any questions later on more about the PS4S tire, definitely come up to me. I know these sessions, I wish they were longer because there's so much to talk about, but I will be around during breaks, during lunch, after the event. If anybody wants to continue conversations, that's why I'm here, and I just want to be able to help you guys out and chat with you guys. So let me jump in to the actual, what we're going to be talking about. And the way I present, I don't want to be the only one talking here. I want to hear from you guys. So to do that, I'm about to bounce the ball over to you guys in your court. And this is what I have that is typically what we present to Porsche owners. We do Porsche Tech Tactics at the races for Porsche Club, and then we also do things with different relationships with regional Porsche groups, Porsche Experience Center, the driving schools. So, if I were to ask you guys, and I'm just going to leave it in the air to say, what are the top 2 that you want to spend the next 20 minutes talking about, which would you choose? Just throw it out.
Care and feeding for one.
3 and 5.
Yeah, 3 and, or, 5 definitely.
Okay, so I'm hearing 2 and 5 and 3 and 5. 5 has been chosen by every group so far. The N spec has been chosen by the first 2 groups as well, so.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to go, is 4 and 5. Oh, yeah.
You want to go 4 and 5? And by the way, N spec, that means that those are the tires that are built specifically for Porsche, almost bespoke products, and there's a reason behind it. There is a difference between an N spec tire and a non-N spec tire, and it can vary tremendously. So that's one of the reasons that we had spent some time talking about it so far. But again, if we don't get time to talk about a few of these few areas, then you're more than welcome to come approach me, and I'm going to be around. I'm not going anywhere for a while. Okay?
So which 2 we going?
Did we want to go 2 and 5 or 4 and 5? 4 and 5? Gotcha. All right. So let's start off with N-spec tires. Okay. N-spec tires. N-spec means that there is actually, if you see here in the photo up above, so on the sidewall of the tire, if I were to pick up this Pilot Sport 4S tire here and look at the sidewall, there's a lot of markings, usually government markings, DOT, Department of Transportation markings that are internal to us, and then sizing and air pressure, not recommendations, but max. But you have an N-spec fitment, and what that means is that next to the size, you'll see a letter N and either a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What that means is that when you purchase or you acquire your Porsche vehicle, it comes with tires that are actually specifically tuned for that car. Not for Porsche, but for that Porsche car. So if it's a GT4, it's for that GT4. And there's a reason behind all of that, because we spend a lot of time working together with them to come up with the correct combination of what is needed to allow that car to do what it was built to do. All right, so what's very unique about brands, let's say like Porsche, Ferrari, BMW, Mercedes-AMG, is the level of performance that is built into these vehicles is very high. So not to take anything away from the everyday cars that are on the street, but if you think about a common car, so say a Camry, a Civic, a minivan, an SUV, the way we build tires is more than enough to allow for the best safety, the best longevity and wear, handling and performance, low rolling resistance, low noise. The performance capabilities of something like a GT3 RS, it's a different ballgame, right? So we work very closely with them. Sometimes it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ahead of time to where we're working on the next generation of possible homologation of a Michelin tire on a new platform of a Porsche vehicle. So it's good. It's good. We learn a lot. We both learn a lot. And trust me, it would be nice if we presented the very first iteration to them and they're like, hey, this is great. This is the one we want. But typically it's a lot of back and forth. So it starts off with, hey, we're coming out with the new generation, blah, 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 and we're interested in what you can provide us to allow that new car to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G through double Z, whatever it is.
So can you get these types of tires for your car, say whatever model you have, at like a tire rack or something, or do you have to go through a dealer? Or?
No, you can. So the question was, can you get these N-spec tires from a retailer or a wholesaler like a tire rack? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll give you a few tips in just a moment on some things to watch out for when you do go to replace your tires. But okay, go back to Porsche saying, hey, we want this tire. What do you got, or what can you do for us? So of course, initially we're like, we got this. what you think, because it would be better for us, obviously. So what they'll take is they'll take that existing tire, or maybe we present them with a few different examples, and then they'll go back and test, and then they'll come back, well, we like this about this one. It'd be nice if it did a little bit more of tire number 3, but tire number 4, go ahead and take it out, come back. So then we'll present a few more tires. So it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until hopefully we do come up with what's called a homologated tire, which means they have selected specifically for Michelin to build that product to be mounted on every single one or majority of these vehicles, okay? So say, well, what the heck is the difference? Because here's my example. Let's say 305/30/20. 305/30/20 in our tire lineup, you might see it 5 times in the same exact tread design. So let's use Pilot Supersport. There can be a 305/30/20 for Porsche. There can be a 305/30/20 for Ferrari. There can be a 305/30/20 for Ford. And then one that doesn't have any marking, which is just the replacement market fitment. And you always have questions, because when you look them up, the prices are different. The availability sometimes is different. And people want to know why. It's a 305/30/20, who cares, throw it on there. No. Again, everything is built specifically, as you can see here. So take into account things like suspension and chassis setup from the factory that the car has, the ultimate capabilities, high speed requirements, performance levels. Do they want more? Are they willing to sacrifice wet traction for more dry grip, or vice versa? What about the layout of the compounding across the face of the tire? Is it the same from inner shoulder to outer shoulder? Sometimes it's even as dramatic enough as to where the tire looks completely different than the existing tires in that lineup. So if you take a look here, let me kick it off with, yeah.
Back, because it says specifications should not be mixed on a vehicle. And
Correct.
yet I've been told that I could put like the N3 on the fronts and the N4s on the back. Is that not true?
No, you shouldn't. And so the numbers have to do with the generation. So what we will do is potentially we can update a tire within a line that maybe has been around for a while, or that same exact size may have been, one of them may have been the Cayman 235/35/19, and now this is the 911 235/35/19. So one's an N2 and one's an N3, because this one was built for the front of the 911 or vice versa. So you shouldn't mix them. If at any point you're mixing anything, you want to put the newest one on the rear.
On the rear, that's what, okay.
Yeah. So if you're gonna do it, make sure that the rear is the newest generation.
So,
Okay.
okay, so as long as it's ZR rated, right, what is the N really doing? Because if I could buy a Michelin ZR rated tire and be fine.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden, you have to have the N.
Yep.
Really? So
Yep.
are the ZRs gone and you
So
can
Z-
only get the Ns now?
Yeah. So ZR and N have nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
So
I thought
Z-
ZR was like a speed rating.
It is. So the ZR is the speed rating, which is universal in the tire industry,
Okay.
which means that the tire can meet speeds of up to blank for an X amount of period of time.
Okay.
The N spec means that that tire was built specifically for your car, which means that it's custom tuned. So here's the problem. Tires are round, they're black, they have a hole in the middle, they don't smell good, and they cost too much money, right? That's what everybody thinks. I think they smell great, but I'm a nerd. So
When they're new?
yeah, they smell amazing. They smell amazing when you come off the track too.
Oh, yeah.
But so here's the thing: is to the naked eye and even to an expert, this is a 235/35/19, okay? And this is again the normal 235/35/19. If I put a Porsche N spec right next to it, no one would be able to tell the difference if you're looking at it here. Now, of course, you tilt it over and look at the sidewall and see an N2. It's a Porsche spec fitment. So what is the difference? And here's an example. This is a very dramatic example, by the way. So for Panamera, Porsche says, hey, we really like that Pilot Sport All-Season 3 tire you make. That is a great tire, and we feel it's a great fit for the Panamera. However, we like that tread design that is on the Latitude tires. Is there any way you could put the tread off of the Latitude tire onto a Pilot Sport All-Season 3 tire? It's like, sure. So we'll work together with them, because again, we want to make sure that we help enable that vehicle to provide you the experience that you want when you get behind the wheel of a Porsche vehicle, okay? So in this case, this is what a Pilot Sport All-Season 3 tire looks like normally. The Panamera tread design looks like that. Can you see that it's a clear difference? So this is where I'm going to give you a couple of tips. When you go to replace your tires, whether you're using a local retailer or you're using someone like Tire Rack or Discount Tire, is pay close attention that you guys own a pretty amazing vehicle that actually requires these more attentive tires, and they are N-spec. So when you go to replace them, make sure that you make a little bit of an effort or work with whoever you're working with to purchase them to say, just want to make sure that these are the ones for my car. Because you could accidentally order the same exact size, this one, and then you'd have 3 tires that look like that and one that looks like that. And that would be like putting a running shoe on your left foot and a loafer on the right foot. Yeah, they fit, yeah, it works, but at the end of the day, you're not, something's not going to work here, especially if I'm going to take off in a race or I'm going to go dance,
So once you order that from, let's say, like Tire Rack, and because they ask you for the car that you have, right?
Correct.
So wouldn't that automatically point you to the right end tire?
Yes. So folks, let's say like Tire Rack, and I know others such as Discount Tire, I feel they do a very good job of when you enter the year, make, model option, that it will direct you up top to the N-spec tires. And it actually says N-spec Porsche recommended. So it's great that they do that. But you could also potentially, let's say, go to Johnny's Tire and Auto down the street, and they're like 235, 35, 19. Let me look it up, and they might accidentally order the wrong one.
The discount they'll give you that Michelin, and then they'll say, yeah, you can have this Continental or this Carrel.
Sure.
as well.
Sure. So this is why I would love to be able to talk to every Porsche owner across the country. However, that's very difficult to do, even though we do a lot of events. So that's why events like this that are put on by HRE are so great, because it allows us to pass the knowledge on to you. And of course, all of you guys have other Porsche friends, and now you become somewhat of an expert in tires to be able to say, hey, no, you need to make sure that it has this, it has this, it has this.
Got a question for you.
1 second.
Have you had people come up to you and say, hey, I've got a Carrera, I've got the Pilot Sports, but have had the experience in, like, say, an autocross, came changing tires. They tried out the Super Sports and found out that non-spec Pilot Super Sports actually, to them, far exceeded the N-spec.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Because I'm speaking from experience too, so I'm wondering if there's been a lot of people.
sure. So the question is, what about N-spec versus non-N-spec? And have you had folks tell you that the non-N-spec, let's say in a newer generation tire, is better? It can be. It can be. And especially if it's in extreme conditions like on a track day. Because when you're on the track, everything goes out the window, kind of. Because you have variables, umpteen variables. You have the car, the track, the ambient temperature, the surface, the person behind the wheel, the age of the tires, the air pressures, the suspension setup, the camber, the toe, all of those things that come into play. So N-spec or non-N-spec, of course, we still recommend the N-spec tire. However, when folks tell me for track days, it's kind of like, hey, you're considered literally off-road now. You're off-the-road use. And that's when it's kind of, hey, it's up to you. Everyday driving, because you talk about liabilities, so hard braking, longevity for wear, things like that. And that leads perfect segue into this slide up here. Take a look. That's a Pilot Super Sport tire cut that we have. So if you take a look, that's the top of the tire and all the materials that are underneath it into the bead. This is the outside of the tire, so the wheel would be right here. And if I jump over here, a normal Pilot Super Sport or a traditional Pilot Super Sport is a bi-compound tire, which means that it has 2 different compounds across the face. I've got those differentiated here by color. So on the outside, the blue, that is more of your dry, heavy carbon black, more track-inspired rubber compound for dry grip. So when you're digging into the corners, the outside of that tire is giving you the best grip possible. The remainder of the tire, and a lot of people are usually shocked about this, is more of a hybrid wet-dry compound, which is really why the Pilot Super Sport and now the Pilot Sport 4S are a very high level of wet grip, wet braking for shorter distances, but more importantly, the feel of the tire as it recovers from a wet situation or a damp situation on and off dry or deep puddle to damp. It doesn't take that long for the tire to recover and make you feel safe and confident again. Now, an exact tire that is tuned for an OE like a Porsche or an AMG or a Ferrari, look how many different colors we have across the face on the exact same tire. So you've got what looks here like a multi-compound. You have 1, 2, and 3 different compounds just on the outer shoulder. The intermediates are the same. The center is different, and then the inner shoulder is different as well. So it can be 3, 4, 5 different compounds across the face that go all the way down or into multi-levels like here. So think about this. Porsche cars and BMW M cars naturally have a ton of negative camera, especially in the rear, do they not? And traditionally, or if you go years ago before we were in tire companies were involved with that, it can be very difficult to build a tire that would last to where your inner cords aren't showing when you're driving it normally. So there's ways that we can adjust accordingly, for example, to where not only in the compound, but in the construction of the tire underneath. So the fabric, the cords, the placement of the cords, we can adjust that. So if the GT3 has a negative, I don't know, you guys know what that factory camber setting is? Might be negative 2 point something on the rear. We can do something to adjust that to where it's not going to wear out the inner shoulders in 3,000 miles under normal driving conditions. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we can do. So again, which is why it's so important that you could throw on the same tire non-N spec, but it's not always about going fast and cornering. It can be just how it wears.
Mine's just a daily driver. So on average, what does Michelin say is a normal wear for a tire? Is it?
Oh, it is. We don't. It's impossible to determine. We do attribute mileage warranties to tires, but that's not in any way what you should expect because there's, again, too many different variables. Right. Depending on the tire, for example, this is the Pilot Sport 4S, the new tire. It has a 30,000 mile warranty attributed to it. If you have different sizes, front and rear, the rear typically takes all the abuse. Therefore, the mileage warranty is half, so it would be 15K for the rear. But again, that doesn't, I've seen many cases where under normal driving conditions, non-track, that folks get 20, 22, 23. But then again, if you drive the car more aggressively and spend more time with the right foot down, I'm guilty, then the tires can and will wear out quicker. But even in that situation, again, take a Super Sport or a 4S under aggressive driving and then maybe take someone else's tire in aggressive driving and you're still going to get more mileage. Typically from our products. We do very well in that category. Longevity, durability, higher mileage works out really well. Yes?
Does Porsche work exclusively with Michelin on tire design, or do they work with other tire?
Question is Porsche and Michelin exclusive to each other when designing tires? No, not exclusive. We work very closely together with them, and we have for years. And it's an awesome relationship from OE to motorsports to driving schools. However, depending on the generation of the car or the model, you might see other manufacturers in there as well. So I've seen, currently you've got Pirelli, Continental, Bridgestone, and Goodyear that in some way, shape, or form will provide some type of tire for it. But on the Michelin side, Michelin is I can currently say this because it exists, is chosen by vehicle manufacturers for their highest end performance. So again, with Porsche, GT3, GT3 RS, 918, GT4, Cayman. With BMWs, we're on all the M cars.
Well, I think Corvettes went from now Goodyear's to Michelin.
Yeah, Corvette is the only one, just as an FYI, where every single Corvette that rolls off the assembly line in Bowling Green is on Michelin product. So C7, Grand Sport, Z06, Z07 package, Stingray, those are all, Z51, those are all on Michelin. But that's, they have a much smaller portfolio. Okay. Yes, sir.
So when you're going after market, like say you're getting your HRE rims, and
Yeah.
you're going a slightly different fitment, it kind of, do you no longer have that option to go to those OE spec tires, but now you're kind of changing?
That's a great, yes. So that's a great question. The question is, when you choose to modify your car, so whether it's brakes or wheels or suspension, how does that now affect your tire choice? Good question. It came up in the last two groups as well. And the OE sizes are the ones that we work on for the company, whoever the OE manufacturer is, to develop that kind of more bespoke product. When it comes to all the other sizes, trust me, I am not in any way discrediting the partnered tires like N-Spec or the Star Spec or the MO Spec or the Audi Spec. They are built to deliver the utmost performance and sometimes exceed it as well. So if you go from a 19 to a 21 and you're looking at a 325, 25, 21 or a 305, 25, 21 or something like that in a PS4S or a Super Sport, I mean, you're still good to go. Are you going against the N-Spec? You are, but you've already done that also as well by modifying everything else. So that's kind of like the track. So yes, you go to the track, it's a different environment, and things kind of, not 100% go out the window, but things can change when you're doing that because you're putting yourself in the vehicle in a different territory. So it's fine, and that's why we make all of these sizes. I wish we could make more, and I know these guys wish we could make more exotic sizes for some of the larger fitments, and we're looking at it, and we're actually bringing some new PS4S. We're going back to some 25 series fitments finally, starting in January for some of these upgrades.
Stupid question.
Never. No, it's not.
So when you check your tread,
Yes.
see how you accurately test your tread.
Okay.
Like if I'm at home and I'm like, how do I test?
Two ways. So two ways. The question was, how do you actually yourself at home check the tread to make sure they're not worn out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
So,
are they getting low?
so actually there's three ways. So the first way is if you actually bought a tread depth gauge that the tire shops have, and it measures tread in 30 seconds of an inch. And they're cheap, yeah, $5. You can get one, and what you do is you measure it in the grooves, and you push that on it, and it'll give you a measurement. Traditionally, tires have anywhere between 9 to 10 30 seconds new. A tire is legally worn out in most states at 2 30 seconds. Some are 3. So you have usable 7 to 8 30 seconds of tread. All right, so anytime you're getting close to 2 or 3, that's when you start needing to think about it. There's also what's called wear bars. If anybody wants to come up later, but you see these little kind of bridges in there, in the tires? Those bridges are actually 2 30 seconds of an inch. So if you turn your wheel and look, if you can put your finger and it's even, the tread to that bridge, then that means you need to change your tires. You need to change your tires. You're not going to start seeing things like the cords and the fabric till probably about 1, but definitely if you're at 2, and the reason that it's not safe, especially if it rains, because you have reduced depth and void to evacuate water. So you're more susceptible to hydroplaning and things like that.
Because Michelin used to give you these round things with the guy's head. And
Yeah, I was about to say, that's number 3. You can still use the penny. So that old penny test is you take the penny or the Michelin Man penny and you hold it upside down, and if you cannot see Lincoln's head, then you're good. If you can see the top of Lincoln's head, then that means that you're about 2 to 3 30 seconds and you need to replace your tires.
Same with the Michelin guy? The
Yeah,
head?
same thing. So with the Michelin Man, you just flip it over and put it down, and if you can't see the top of his head, then you're good. If you're getting close to it or can see it, you need to go check out some new tires. Yeah. So I think we're about to rotate. As I mentioned, I know that there's a lot of cool information and you guys have great questions. However, I will be around. Please come bother me at lunch. I don't care if I'm eating. And we'll get to it, I promise. I will also, if anybody needs this information, I'll do what I can to provide it.
Okay, what's the treadwear on these new ones?
300.
300, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
No problem.
So show me again that, so.
Majestic
those little lights?
casual. Experience music in a new way. Escape everything.
I don't know.
There should be a little switch on the.
Sir, is this on? Is there yeah. Oh my God. All right, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming for this. We are definitely proud to be here, a part of this. You know, HRE is definitely a big industry friend of ours, and we share a lot of the same values. in what we do as Brembo and Race Technologies, and we're glad to be here and glad you're here with us. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about Brembo and Race Technologies and about ourselves and about Porsches and what we're doing for braking for those. And then most importantly, we want to get into questions from you guys. The whole idea is here is to have an active Q&A. So we definitely welcome any questions and input from you guys. Don't be shy. And we'll go from there. All right? Okay, so you guys are all Porsche owners, I imagine, and certainly familiar with Brembo. Brembo and Porsche have a very long and active relationship together. Danny and I are both Porsche people and Porsche owners and PCA people, so we're just as involved as you guys, and so we're extra happy to be talking to Porsche people at heart. So Brembo is the global leader in braking and brake technology, both at the original equipment level, as you can see on this amazing car behind us, all the way through aftermarket performance upgrades for your street cars, for your track car, and then of course at professional level in motorsports worldwide, where we definitely are the world leader in that respect. So, just a little bit about ourselves. My name is Chris Villasenor, and this is Danny Jacobs. We're with Race Technologies. We're a commercial partner for Brembo, and this is what we do. Like I said, we're both Porsche people, and this is all we do is Brembo, and so we're gonna get started here. So just to get a little bit idea about you guys, do we have any air-cooled owners? Are we all later model Porsche people here? We got it. All right. All right, good. Glad to hear it. And how many of you guys are just street driving only? Okay, awesome. Do we have any track people here? Okay, lots of fun. All right, that's the gateway, right, to the track. So excellent. No, we're glad to hear it all because what's great about Brembo is as you know, being Porsche owners, especially with late model Porsche, Brembo is that partnership with that. And so that's one aspect of it, is the high level of integration there is at that original equipment level. And then the next one would be that those high performance street and track upgrades, which we have a few examples here of, and then of course at a top tier motorsports level. That's what Danny and I specialize in, is the high performance upgrades for your street car and your track car, and then even top tier race components as well. So we like to kind of segment it out, with that, and then focus on these aftermarket high performance upgrades. And hopefully in the process of us talking a little bit about that, we can talk a little bit about some of the braking questions I think we probably we all have. And again, I can't say enough, we definitely want to welcome the questions from you guys. So that being said, being Porsche owners yourselves, we're going to start with one of our most popular product ranges that we do for Porsche from the aftermarket performance standpoint, and that's our two-piece disc assemblies. We have these for a range of Porsches, although the biggest market segment of that we do would be for PCCB cars that want to go steel, be it for cost or most often for track and high performance use, because this really is probably a better suited application, for that. And I know we have some people here that do some track, and more than likely a lot of you will get a chance to do that at some point, if you are active in PCA and things like that. So we definitely welcome you guys a chance to try that. So there's a number of advantages in doing this over your stock setup. We mentioned cost, but aside from that, what I really want to focus on and what matters most is the performance we're getting out of this. A two-piece disc assembly has a number of advantages, being lighter and a higher thermal capacity, being extremely durable, and also the ability to really kind of tune the system and run different paths and such. And we'll get into some of the details about kind of tuning our brakes here later. So for most applications that are PCCB, you can switch over to these. They're incredibly cost effective, way to do so for both front and rear. And like I said, it's probably our most popular aspect for later model Porsches. And then we're going to get into what we call our Gran Turismo systems, which are full brake upgrades for street and track. And I'm going to let Danny tell you a little bit about that. I'm going to get a little closer, so hopefully everybody can hear. So,
Pretty loud.
Yeah.
So A lot of our program involves the Gran Turismo upgrades, and it's a complete system package. So not only is it the two-piece disc upgrade that Chris spoke about, which would be designed to work with the factory Porsche caliper, these include an aftermarket high-performance Brembo caliper, high-performance brake pads, stainless steel lines, and all the mounting components to put this on your vehicle. So it is a plug-and-play package. We have lots of different reasons people are motivated to go up to a system. And also being Porsche people, you have a good braking systems on the car from the factory. As far as what would motivate you, there's different reasons out there. You might put larger wheels and tires on the car and realize that your factory brakes look small. And that's absolutely a big factor in looking at these upgrades, is if you were to put a few of these sets of HREs in the vehicle, your factory brakes may not fill up that wheel. And because of the Brembo upgrades, there's many different sizes available. So again, the aesthetic appeal of the aftermarket upgrades is definitely a huge reason. The other one is performance. A lot of us don't have factory cars anymore. And a lot of us have wider, grippier tires. We have more horsepower, we have more downforce, or we just want something that's a little bit more fun. With the upgraded systems, you're getting a two-piece floating disc, you're getting an aftermarket high-performance caliper that really is designed for the performance enthusiast. Within this program, there's also different caliper options. So this would be your Gran Turismo caliper. And similar to an OE, you have a dust boot to help protect against the elements. You have pad retaining pins and springs. So it's a quiet setup, and even though it's a fully floating disc, the disc isn't going to make the noise that you would normally associate with a fully floating race setup. Now let's say that you look at this system and you're like, well, I spend a lot of time on the track. I need something with more heat defense because I want to start going to the track on the regular, and I want to run a race pad. That gets us into the next line, which would be the GTR. And the GTR is really that hybrid that does it all. We were having a lot of customers that found themselves in an environment where they needed heat defense. They needed a lot of the benefits that you find in a race caliper. But we have a very unique market where a lot of those guys still wanted to drive their car on the street. They wanted to drive to the track, and they didn't want something that was noisy or dusty or hard to maintain. So they wanted a street setup that they could take on the track and beat up like a race caliper. And that's where the GTR really came in, is Brembo developed this system where it has a lot of the features that this caliper would, as far as the maintenance, as far as the comfort, but then it has a lot of the components that you would find in a race caliper. And Chris can talk about the seal design as well. I'll pass that on over.
So she mentioned the street features that this has. What makes this caliper great and sort of that ultimate street track crossover is now we can incorporate a lot of the race features. So the biggest thing is this is a cast caliper over here, whereas this is machined from billet. So this is very strong, very robust. This also features what we call a twin seal design. So instead of having a pressure seal and then a dust boot out here that we're all used to seeing, which is very exposed to a very chaotic environment here with the disc and pad and heat and everything happening here, this tucks it away and protects it and helps keep those contaminants from getting into the fluid. And then we have what we call a stainless piston insert here for heat defense. And this is a very important aspect of this construction and a feature that's definitely in all of our top tier race calipers. And then on top of that, of course, it's nickel plated, which you'll see in our top NASCAR calipers and certainly Formula One and MotoGP as a great defense against that extreme environment. So this is an incredible piece of art here when you see it up close. I definitely welcome everybody to come and take a look at it after we're done here. It's absolutely amazing. It's a great transition into some of our race calipers and how and why we do things. Now that we've seen a little bit of the crossover here, this is a great example of a caliper, which also I welcome you to come and see because you can really feel the difference in the weight considering how big it is. This is an incredibly advanced caliper that you'll see in modern GT racing in an endurance environment. So you can see how much wider it is. So it allows for the use of a very wide, so you can see. So we can run a thicker disc and more importantly, thicker pads. And this is what we call an optimized design. So you can see the difference in there. All the extra material is moved, everything is designed to be in an optimal way, both for fluid flow and heat management, stiffness, and even airflow in there. That's another really important aspect of it. And it's significantly lighter. This also features a removable stiffening bridge and a quick release swing bridge for easy pad changes. So
now, of course, there's a price tag involved with going to something that really can do it all, something that is complete top level, top tier racing, and that's where you have products like the Club Racing caliper.
So now we go into one that is a cast body versus billet versus forged. But yet again, we're still incorporating a lot of important features that we would do in our top tier race calipers. So piston inserts, anodized finished instead of paint, the ability to run a thicker pad than we would in our street setup, and then again a quick release swing bridge for very easy pad changes. So for the club racer or the track day enthusiast, you can have top tier performance in a very affordable package. This has definitely been proven and quite effective in that. So do you have any questions on calipers? I know we just barely scratched the surface of it, but
I know there's, they market a lot, the number of pistons between calipers. Could you talk a little bit more about what's the advantages of this?
yeah, so you're asking about piston count. In other words, why 4 versus 6 versus 8 and so on. And that's actually a great question because I think we always assume that 6 must be better than 4 and 8 must be better than 6. And the reality is that's sort of a yes and no. There are times where that is better, and that was the point in a sense. But the reality is it's all about how the system is designed and what it's designed for. We don't have it here because there's probably 200 race calipers we could show you just for racing alone. But we do have examples where we have incredibly strong, robust 4-piston calipers that are winning IMSA races this weekend, for example, in Long Beach. So it's less about sort of how big something is or how many pistons are on there, but more about where and how it's being used and what it's been engineered for. Yeah. Oh.
You have systems that also have the multi-piston and multi-brake pads on one caliper.
Yeah, and there's times where that's advantageous. There's an 8-piston caliper, which is a great example of that, where you actually have 8 pistons, and instead of one big pad, it uses 2 smaller pads, and that allows them to keep weight reasonable. There's also times where having those 2 pads with 2 leading edges can be advantageous, as well. So now, does that mean that's always better for everything? Absolutely not. But for the intended purpose of that caliper, it was an effective way to achieve all the performance parameters that they were looking for.
You made a comment about maintenance. What exactly was that in relation to? What maintenance?
With a race caliper, it doesn't have the same creature comforts that an OE would. With the race caliper, you are going to have to maintain it more because it doesn't have the protection against the environment. You're flushing fluid on the regular. With a street OEM caliper, you're not doing that maintenance that a race team would. So when you look at the aftermarket high performance calipers, a lot of the same principles that were used for the original equipment Porsche calipers were incorporated into this one. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times when you are looking at aftermarket upgrades for your car, the number one concern is, okay, well, what am I getting myself into? Is there additional maintenance? Am I gonna have to worry about different things? And really with the Brembo setup, it's plug and play. You can put it on the car, and for the most part, besides feeling the additional performance and the feel, you're not having to think about it the same way you would with other aftermarket upgrades on a vehicle where you're sacrificing certain things by upgrading the performance.
It needs to be very user-friendly. Yeah.
And to give you that, I've installed the brake kit on my personal car, so it's a very user-friendly product where if I could do it, I'm pretty sure most people could.
Yeah.
Do you have any carbon ceramic brake upgrades?
Yes. Although it always comes with a bit of explanation. So here's a good example. Porsche is obviously one of the pioneers in ceramic or carbon ceramic setups, and they're definitely in partnership with Brembo. As with other car manufacturers, you see, will also use a carbon ceramic material. And that's a great example of a very high performance street setup. And there's a number of reasons why they do that that are certainly performance oriented, but also to reduce weight on the car and improve efficiency. And that's very important. What we offer from an aftermarket standpoint is what's called CCMR, and this is an incredibly advanced material. It's actually the most advanced material that, say, you or I could get. And it's not done for everything, and it's not cheap. But it actually does, I think, what a lot of people think some of these street level materials can do. So this can be run in the street, this can be run on the track, this can be raced. You can do a 24-hour race on it. It's actually physically more durable than, say, PCCB or standard CCM, but it takes months to make a disc, and for a lot of us, it can be cost prohibitive. Oh, yeah.
Can you explain why, like, say, for example, the cross-drilled rotors, I guess installing them on various corners of the car, you just don't really look at the cross-drilled direction, you would have to look at the vein of the rotor?
Uh-huh. Yeah, no problem at all. First, what I'll do, because I think we all tend to want to know this, about the difference between, say, drilled versus slotted, and then we can talk about, you know, how it relates to the veins inside, because that's really important. The most basic way to break it down is drilled for street and slotted for track, okay? In the sense that drilled is actually a great, especially when we're talking about an incredibly well-engineered, high-performance disc assembly. So both these disc assemblies, actually, the material in this disc is the same that's in our top-level race disc. And that's really important that the metallurgy in there is the best in the market, period. And in some cases, like this disc, this actually is a motorsports disc. It's just plated and set up to be used in a street track, you know, scenario. So we have to start with good material to begin with. Now, in the case of a drill disc, again, these are very basic descriptions, but I like to kind of reference it's sort of like too much of a good thing. It actually cools down too fast. And in a track environment, which is really the only time that you can have those repetitive heat cycles, not on the street, no matter how aggressive we get, we just can't do that. In a track environment, it simply will cool down too fast. And when we heat metal and they cool it down too fast and heat and cool down too fast, it stresses the material, and that's where you can get the cracks. Now, on a very high-performance Brembo setup, I've never seen one in all these years crack on the street. It's only in the track and only in a more extreme environment. Now, we can start with a lesser material disc and absolutely can do that on the street, no problem. But at this level of componentry, it's much more extreme. So, and then for track use, we're going to want to go with a slotted disc. And with that, we have more than one option, actually, depending on what you're doing. We have what we call a Type 1 slot, which is that traditional kind of straight slots that you're used to seeing traditionally. And then we have sort of a long curved slot, and that's called a Type 5 slot. And then we have what we see here is a Type 3 slot pattern, which also is motorsports derived. We have a variety of discs and a variety of slot patterns and other combinations when we get into that track environment to allow us to really tune the brake system accordingly. And you hear us talk about that again, about brake tuning, because in our world, we really treat tuning the brake system in the same way you would tune your car, you would tune your suspension. It's a really important aspect on that. It's not just, oh, we put bigger brakes on and it's all good to go. You know, tuning is a really important part of it. And then we talked about the direction. What's most important is the direction of the veins inside there. I don't know if you guys can all see that. There's a curved vein in there, and in this case it's going like this, and they're curving. And this one actually has 72 veins instead of what we consider a standard of 48. And the reason for that is not so much to have more, say, like cooling blades in the fan, if you will. It actually is another way to have more material in that same package. In other words, we can hold more heat in this disc than we can in that exact same disc with 48 veins. Now, it does, of course, offer opportunities to radiate that heat out, you know, because we have more surface area and such. But the most important aspect of that is that heat that we can put in there. And then you had mentioned that vein direction. What's less important is the disc, the drill pattern itself. although that still has to be done correctly relative to the internal structure, of it, and also ultimately so that those holes, the way they line up, you ultimately will have a complete sweep of the pad surface. So there is actually a lot of engineering that goes into the drill pattern and where it is, but the direction, be it they go forward or they go rear, is not as important, if that makes sense. But what is important is the direction that the vanes go. The vanes need to curve towards the rear of the vehicle, not.
Example there, is that for the right side of the vehicle?
Yeah, and this, for example, if this was on a car right now, yeah, this would be like passenger side, because it's spinning like this, and it's sucking air from the center and exhausting it out the top. It does not, they don't scoop air, if that makes sense. So any of you that get a chance to see a race car and you see that duct work kind of coming into that center, it's very important that that airflow is to the center of it so that it can evenly distribute that cooling air and exhausting out, as opposed to blowing onto one side of the disc, because then you'll have a differentiate, it'll be much cooler on one side than it is the other. And again, you can stress the material, and that's real important. So, yeah.
On a basic level, can you kind of explain the difference between PCCB, the carbon ceramic brakes versus the steel brakes? And I have carbon ceramic brakes on my GT4.
Uh-huh.
I noticed it's just really squeaky. I kind of read about that. The carbon ceramics are very squeaky. And what's the reason behind the squeakiness? And is there any way to prevent the squeakiness?
Well, we had a discussion about this earlier, and I'm going to let you take that one.
All right. The setup on your particular vehicle, it is an original equipment Porsche setup. So the information on that setup and the pads that were selected, there was a lot of different criteria that went into making that selection, and that was done between Brembo and Porsche when that system was developed. And sometimes, as far as the brake noise, there are different contributing factors that can result in a harmonic issue, which is something that would be a squeaking brake, a squealing brake. And with a setup like that, because it is so specific to that unique Porsche setup, really any sort of technical support would have to be handled through the dealership level, just because of the type of product that's involved. With the Brembo program as a whole, a brake squeal or brake noise is still very uncommon. And when you get into the aftermarket upgrades, for the most part, there's a lot of noise defeats that you'll see that really reduce, if not eliminate, the typical noise that you would normally associate with a high-performance brake system. When you get into higher performing pads or higher friction pads, of course, squeal is always one of those byproducts, as well as accelerated wear rates and brake dust as well. But there's no magic bullet with squeal. There's a lot of determining factors that would go into that being developed, and unfortunately, I don't have a straight answer for you as far as what you'd be able to do to resolve that.
But if it's normal that it squeals,
It would be something that would have to be handled through the Porsche dealership at that point, because even though Brembo is involved in the development of that system, it is a Porsche original equipment setup.
because I read about like people with PCCBs that squeal is like a normal thing, and people will just recommend to like drive it fast, brake hard a couple times, and it'll go away. So it's not an uncommon thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering, what is the reason behind the squeal? And they're saying people usually get the steel brakes to kind of go away from that squeal.
Well, with the steel brakes, again, you'd be changing a pretty large aspect of the system. And of course, going to a different type of rotor, a different brake pad in some cases, and then also focusing on the bedding of material into that friction ring. Those are all going to be things that you could do to reduce, or eliminate the brakes from creating noise under application. So, if that's what people are doing, then that's one solution that you could absolutely look into as far as resolving the noise issue.
What if it just happens intermittently? Like sometimes your brakes will squeal. Let's say you don't drive the car that often. Take it out, the brakes will squeal, but once you've got the car going and the brakes heat up, the noise goes away. I mean, is that something to worry about or normal? Or?
Yeah.
So coming and going is what you're asking. The hard part about brake squeal is that any brake system on any car and in any combination can do that. It doesn't mean that it should or that it will, that it can. And there's a lot of noise defeats that are built into a factory system, and even different versions that we'll do with aftermarket to try to overcome that. But it's always tough for us to address because of the so many variables involved in doing that. And typically when it comes and goes, sometimes temperature can have something to do with that. Sometimes your environment can have a lot to do with that. So, we hate that we can't be as specific as we can with a lot of other issues that you might have. We can say, yes, do this, and it absolutely takes care of that. Noise is always the toughest thing to go. And also the limitations of the fact that, again, you have Porsche parts and something you would need to address with your Porsche dealer, versus if you had, one of our aftermarket systems, and then absolutely you would talk to us about it, and we can support it in that way as well. Anything you want to add to that?
No, sounds
Okay.
As far as this setting is specific to Porsche, if you have a second vehicle that you drive every day, can you have something similar to the product that you use for Porsche?
So in other words, you have another vehicle that you would like kind of the level of performance braking that you have with your Porsche. Absolutely. I mean, we do about 600 plus vehicle applications of brake upgrades that we can do. What's the vehicle? Yeah, I mean, we do have systems available. That's a great system that is on there as well. But again, depending on what you're doing with the car, absolutely, we can assist with that.
Where do you buy the systems?
Well, we have a dealer network all over the country that we can take care of. We can help you refer to that. You can also go to racetechnologies.com and look up dealers there. But if you're local in the area, then we probably already work with who's doing your performance upgrades and such as there. So yeah, definitely talk to us after, and we can help guide you that way.
Could you guys talk a little bit about brake fluid and picking the right, fluid for whatever application that you might be using it for?
Yeah, brake fluid is a great thing, and we definitely want to do. I'm going to let you want to take that one.
Yeah. Brembo offers 3 different types of fluid, and really one of the simplest ways that we've learned to communicate where the programs lie, street track race. So what's best for you really depends on where your car is going to be used and what you want to get out of the braking system. So of course, doing a street fluid for normal street driving, always going with a higher performing fluid, you're going to see some improvements. You have the next step up, which would be an LCF 600, and really this is a race fluid. You could run it on the street. But this is going to be something that can handle a much higher temperature range. And that's really where the fluids start getting into, is what's the ideal temperature range that these fluids were designed to be used in. A street fluid's gonna be very different than a race fluid. So within the 2 race fluids that we offer, we have the one that's a little bit, still could probably be used on the street, but really it's street or track and race. This one's going to be full race. This is an extremely high boiling point of fluid. It's ideal for very high temperature situations. So what fluid works best for you really depends on what you're doing with the car.
What kind of improvements do you actually see? Like if you're using
Yeah, a number of things. I'm going to do this fast because we're running out of time on that. But the benefit you have with the fluid is its stability. As it goes through the heat cycles, and then in the extreme cases with our top tier race fluid in that environment, it's not just how well it resists that high temperature change, but also as it is cycled through that, how well it maintains its compressibility, or should we really lack thereof. In other words, how good it feels to you as the driver in those extreme environments.
And I'm sure you've heard of people saying, I boiled my brake fluid at the track, or I overheated my system, and there's different aspects to that, but brake fluid's absolutely one of those, where if you do build up enough heat into your system during track use, this is not going to be enough for you, and you're going to have to come in early and cut your session short, and no one likes doing that.
I've heard that you should be changing your brake fluid every 2 years.
That's how often to change your fluid.
Right.
So you definitely have obviously a service recommendation, from Porsche, and we're big proponents, of course, of following that. So for a regular street-driven car, absolutely want you to follow that. In our opinion, in my opinion, you really can't change it too often, in a sense. So does that mean you have to follow that? Absolutely not. If you want to change it, now if you are track driving the car, sometimes you're more of an enthusiast, or we've done other upgrades and such, I like to see a minimum of once a season. If we're really tracking the car often, then it needs to be done more often. Relatively speaking, it's inexpensive to do, and it's a great way to stay on top of things. Yeah.
On the race caliper with the stiffening bridge, how do you change the pads on that?
Well, quite easily. So there's just simply 2 bolts here, and then that bridge comes right off. And then there's a swing bridge, very much like you would see here, and then it'll just come out from the top.
Also, on the race caliper, here you have different pistons front and rear.
Correct.
Do you do that on any of the street setups? Or is that...
Yeah, absolutely. Most of our calipers will have what we call a sequential piston sizing. So you'll go from smaller, sort of medium and large, and what that does is help maintain even pad wear. So the leading piston, if you will, from the rotation of the disc is going to be smaller than the next ones, and that helps. That's how you get sort of equal pressure on there.
Now you said here that it's all housed with the pads, et cetera, housed inside where?
Well, so that open area there, Danny can kind of show you there. Just like you would see here, you actually, when we're done, if you look at the top, you can see exactly what that is. And here's another good example. And so the disc would be in between.
Just a basic question. Can you explain the floating rotor versus a non-floating rotor?
Yeah.
Not all of them are all floating since they're not really in contact with the brake pads that are rotating.
Yeah. So I appreciate everybody's patience on that. So really what we're going to do is, as we talked about a little bit before, as that disc goes through its heat cycles, that metal gets hot and it actually wants to move. In some cases it wants to expand this way, or this to this, or sometimes like this to this. And that floating hardware allows that friction ring to move as it wants, and most importantly, return back to where it wants. So when we have a one-piece disc, and it would do that, that's how you work a disc. And this allows it to not have that happen. And we have a variety of hardware styles depending on the application, so that it's correct for it as well.
Well, because I've got a particular vehicle that has a floating front disc, but its brand new car is prematurely wearing out the rotors. So now the dealership wants to go to steel rotors that are, I guess they're not really floating.
Yeah, we don't have the time right now, but come see us after this, and we can definitely talk about that in more detail. Definitely, I'm sorry we got to cut it off. I really appreciate everybody coming, and I appreciate the questions very much. Thank you. We're going to be here after, so please don't hesitate to come up and talk to either of us about anything, and we're glad to help. Yeah. Villasenor, yeah.
Okay. You know Nick Wozniak?
Yeah.